Chapter 695. Yixing looked at the dark abyss flood dragon with disdain and said, "You stinky reptile, how dare you dream of becoming a dragon?" The dark abyss flood dragon was enraged and roared, "What did you say? How dare you call the great Lord Flood Dragon a stinky reptile? You deserve to die. Lord Flood Dragon will slowly chew you up and swallow you whole, you stinky brat." Yixing said indifferently, "If I flatter you, you won't eat me." The dark abyss flood dragon raised his huge head and said proudly, "Brat, you have the dragon's bloodline in your body, which is greatly beneficial to Lord Flood Dragon. Lord Flood Dragon will definitely swallow you." Yixing said, "Since you're going to swallow me, why can't I call you a stinky reptile?" "Stinky reptile, this lord will also tell you that the noble dragon's bloodline isn't something a stinky reptile like you can touch. Hurry up and scram before this lord shows his might. Otherwise, I'll peel off your skin, pull out your tendons, and chop off your head to kick like a ball." The dark abyss flood dragon was too powerful. If Yixing really wanted to compete with him, he could only fight with his life on the line. To be honest, Yixing really didn't want to fight with his life on the line. It was too risky. The dark abyss flood dragon thought highly of himself and was angered by Yixing. He shouted, "Stinky brat, you've completely enraged the great Lord Flood Dragon. Originally, Lord Flood Dragon could have given you a quick death, but you've angered Lord Flood Dragon. Lord Flood Dragon will slowly play with you to death and torture you to death." With a flash of golden light, Yixing's body instantly transformed into a dragon and erupted with a terrifying might. He shouted, "Stinky reptile, since you don't know what's good for you, then come. Let's see who will win." Seeing that Yixing used the power of the dragon's bloodline, the dark abyss flood dragon's eyes shone with greed. He. The dark abyss flood dragon sneered and said, "Stinky brat, your ant-like body is the one who's wasting the noble dragon's bloodline. Only the great Lord Flood Dragon can match the noble dragon's bloodline. And you, even if you have the noble dragon's bloodline, you're still as tiny as an ant in front of Lord Flood Dragon." As soon as he finished speaking, he stretched out a huge claw and grabbed towards Yixing's head. The dark abyss flood dragon was 300 meters long. Just his powerful physique alone was enough to sweep through many half-step kings. Adding on his vigorous demonic power, he was an invincible existence among half-step kings. Even if it was just an ordinary claw attack, it still contained an extremely terrifying power. Even a half-step king would find it hard to contend against it. Flood dragons, claw attack. Dragon, flood dragons, claw attack, dragons, dragon. Dragons, flood dragons, attack. Dragon. However, Yixing had only used the 7th move of the Dragon Clan's martial arts, which belonged to the first 9 moves. But now, Yixing made a strange movement and used the 18th move. The Dragon Clan's martial arts he learned in the Divine Dragon Forbidden Land would become stronger the further one went. Moreover, every 9 moves would increase in power by a large margin. The 18th move was the last move of the second 9 moves. It was also the strongest move Yixing could use right now. Yixing's strength exploded to the limit as he clenched his dragon claw into a fist and punched out. Bang! The small fist collided with the huge dragon claw, creating a loud noise that sounded like a landslide. Terrifying shockwaves instantly spread out in all directions. This island was only a dozen li in radius. Under this intense collision, the entire island shook. Especially the ground where Yixing was standing, it was as if it was cracking. The shockwaves were like blades, shaving off a thick layer of earth and rocks. Apart from the cracks on the ground, everything within a radius of a few li was clean. And a few li away, everything was in ruins. All the shaved earth and rocks were blown several li away. Yixing's dragon fist and dragon claw only lasted for 2 breaths of time. In the end, the dark abyss flood dragon's strength was stronger. The moment the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon used his demonic energy, another powerful shockwave blasted out and pushed Yixing back. Yixing slid back over 100 meters before stopping. His legs dragged 2 gullies on the ground as he panted heavily. The Dark Abyss Flood Dragon looked at Yixing and raised his head arrogantly. The power of this punch is much stronger than the previous one. It should be your strongest attack, right? But in front of this Lord Flood Dragon, it still can't withstand a single blow. He. Stinking brat, enjoy this Lord Flood Dragon's destruction. Really, I can only fight with my life on the line. Yixing muttered. Even after using his strongest Dragon Clan martial arts, he was still pushed back by the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon. Other than using the Burning Blood technique to forcefully increase his strength, there was no other way. Since there's no other choice, then let's explode, Burning Blood technique. Yixing roared. His eyes suddenly erupted with a blood-red radiance, revealing a dangerous and terrifying aura as his strength increased explosively. The Burning Blood technique allowed the stronger the bloodline power, the more power one would obtain. Yixing was in his dragon transformation state and was burning his divine dragon bloodline. How terrifying was his strength! Yixing knew that his divine dragon bloodline was a resource that couldn't be regenerated. Every bit he burned was a bit less, so he couldn't waste it. He had to make full use of his time. The moment Yixing's strength erupted, he charged towards the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon with bloodshot eyes. This Dark Abyss Flood Dragon had never seen the Burning Blood technique before. Seeing Yixing's exploding aura and blood-red eyes, he felt an inexplicable fear in his heart. This fear was instantly extinguished by the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon. He was a dignified half-step beast king, and the strongest half-step beast king. Unless a king appeared, almost no one could compete with him. Would Lord Flood Dragon be afraid of a stinky human like you? The Dark Abyss Flood Dragon thought to himself. He immediately swung his claw, and a surging power erupted as he clawed at Yixing. Yixing used the Dragon Clan's martial arts and punched out. Bang! Another earth-shattering explosion. However, this time, Yixing didn't move at all, while the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon's huge body swayed and retreated several steps. The Dark Abyss Flood Dragon was shocked. The sharp pain from his claw shocked him greatly. Yixing's strength was far inferior to his just now, but now he actually exploded with power that was even stronger than his. It was simply unbelievable. Just as the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon was pushed back, Yixing's figure leaped several hundred meters and rushed towards the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon's head. Whoosh! The Dark Abyss Flood Dragon was shocked. His body swayed, and a huge tail swept over. The blazing profound spear instantly appeared in Yixing's hand. Yixing didn't dodge, and he stabbed with his spear. The power of the huge tail was terrifying. Coupled with the speed of Yixing's spear, the combination of the two reached a shocking level. The penetrating power of the blazing profound spear was already very strong. Coupled with the speed of the two, the penetrating power increased by several times. It directly pierced through the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon's sturdy scales and stabbed into his body, penetrating more than a meter deep. The power of the huge tail was indeed terrifying. Yixing was also sent flying by the blazing blood technique, but his dragon claw firmly grasped the spear shaft. Whoosh! The blazing profound spear dragged a huge wound on the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon's tail, and blood splattered all over the ground. The intense pain immediately caused the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon to howl in pain. Chapter 696. Whoosh! Not only was Yixing in his berserk state extremely powerful, but his defense was also greatly enhanced. He was sent flying 100 meters by the Dark Abyss Dragon's tail, but he didn't feel any pain and charged forward again in an instant. The Dark Abyss Dragon was still struggling due to the intense pain, but Yixing had already leaped onto its back. The Dark Abyss Dragon was shocked and hurriedly rolled away. Yixing stretched out his dragon claws and clawed fiercely, tearing off a large chunk of the dark abyss dragon's scales and leaving a few bloody marks on its body. Yixing walked around the dark abyss dragon's body. No matter how the latter rolled, it couldn't get off Yixing. Yixing's dragon claws dug into the dark abyss dragon's body, and he quickly moved around the dark abyss dragon's body. The bloody marks extended from the dark abyss dragon's body to its head, spanning over 100 meters. Who knew how many scales had been scratched off, and fresh blood was flowing out? "I'm going to pull out your horn," Yixing shouted. He rode on the dark abyss dragon's head and grabbed the horn with one claw, while the other claw pierced towards the root of the horn. The dragon claw pierced into the root of the horn, pulling and clenching. Yixing dug out the entire dark abyss dragon's horn. It was still connected to the tendons, and fresh blood was gushing out from the wound. The pain of having its horn pulled out was much more intense than having a large wound on its tail. The dark abyss dragon was in so much pain that tears flowed out. "Spare me, young master. Spare me." Yixing rode on the dark abyss dragon's head, and the dark abyss dragon couldn't get off Yixing no matter what. It cried out miserably and begged for mercy. Yixing knew that the dark abyss dragon's vitality was very strong. Although it was in a lot of pain now, these injuries weren't fatal. Its body was too big, and Yixing couldn't cause fatal injuries to it. If he spared it now, once it recovered, the one who would die would be Yixing. "I'm going to pull out your tendons," Yixing roared angrily. One of his dragon claws dug into the dark abyss flood dragon's flesh, while the other dragon claw kept scratching. First, the scales were scratched open, and soon, blood and flesh flew everywhere. Very quickly, Yixing found a dragon's tendon. With a swipe of his sharp dragon claws, he severed the dragon's tendon. Then, he grabbed the dragon's tendon and forcefully pulled it out of the dragon's body. The cramping pain was much more intense than the horn being pulled out. The dark abyss flood dragon's huge body struggled madly, creating huge trenches in the ground. "Master Dragon is in so much pain." The dark abyss flood dragon let out a miserable shriek. The cramping pain almost caused its entire body to convulse. Finally, the dark abyss flood dragon gathered up the last of his strength and soared into the sky. He traversed over 5 kilometers in the sky before plunging into the pitch-black sea. After the dark abyss flood dragon entered the water, Yixing leaped into the sky, pulling out the dragon's tendon in his hand. He flew into the sky and pulled out the dragon's tendon that was nearly 300 meters long. The seawater below shook violently, setting off layers upon layers of waves. The dark abyss flood dragon was in so much pain that it rolled and struggled in the sea. When Yixing landed on the island, the blood-red light in his eyes receded. He stopped the circulation of the burning blood technique and spat out a mouthful of blood. The attack from the dark abyss flood dragon's tail earlier wasn't a fatal injury. In his berserk state, he couldn't feel it at all. However, it didn't mean that the injury didn't exist. Now that the power of the burning divine dragon bloodline had dissipated, the injury was revealed. Yixing hurriedly ate a profound healing pill and sat down to meditate and heal his injuries. Perhaps it was because of the intense battle with the dark abyss flood dragon that scared the green-haired undead, or perhaps there weren't any green-haired undead nearby, but Yixing wasn't attacked by the green-haired undead while he was healing. Nearly 2 hours later, Yixing's injuries were completely healed. The seawater had already returned to its calm state. Although Yixing's strength hadn't fully recovered, he didn't dare to stay any longer. The dark abyss flood dragon wasn't fatally injured. If it came back, it would be another big problem. Yixing took out the speed communication pearl, but he couldn't contact Wei Qingxian, Zhuo Zhenghai, and the others. The space in the Sea of Darkness prison was unstable, but the speed communication pearl used space as a medium. The more unstable the space was, the shorter the distance it could travel. In the normal space outside, a high-quality speed communication pearl could send a message over 100,000 miles away. However, in the Sea of Darkness prison, it could only send a message over 1,000 miles away. Yixing had flown at top speed for several hours. Although his speed in the Sea of Darkness prison wasn't as fast as outside, he still flew over 100,000 miles. Of course, he couldn't contact the 10th Squad. Not only that, Yixing couldn't contact any of the Dark Star Sect squads. After flying for 100,000 miles, it was impossible to go back the way he came. Just now, he was focused on escaping. How could he pay attention to where he had passed through? Moreover, in the Sea of Darkness prison, other than the islands, the seawater was pitch black. It looked the same. How could he remember the route? Whoosh! Yixing soared into the sky and picked a random direction. He didn't care about anything else. He had to get away from this island first. After flying for more than 10,000 miles, Yixing stopped on an island. I've run so far. The Dark Abyss Flood Dragon won't chase after me, right? Moreover, it suffered such a big loss. It might not dare to chase after me. Yixing thought to himself. He sat cross-legged on the island and continued to recover his energy. Yixing recovered to his peak state, but no green-haired undead spirit appeared. Perhaps he had run too far. There were no green-haired undead spirits in this area. Otherwise, if a green-haired undead spirit discovered him as a 6-star venerable, it would definitely treat him as prey. In the following time, Yixing wandered around the Sea of Darkness prison, sensing the direction. The deeper he went into the Sea of Darkness prison, the more chaotic the space and the heavier the death chi. The opposite direction was naturally the edge of the Sea of Darkness prison. Yixing felt out the general direction and headed toward the edge of the Sea of Darkness prison. The next day, when Yixing was resting on an island, a green-haired undead spirit finally appeared and attacked him. The two groups of green-haired undead spirits that Yixing had encountered before were both about 20 in number. However, this time, there were more than 50 of them. More than 50 green-haired undead spirits surrounded Yixing, 6-star venerable, delicious food. The leader of this undead spirit group looked at Yixing and spoke in human language. The hair on its body was green with a hint of green. The same was true for its eyes. It seemed like it was about to evolve into a green-haired undead spirit, which was equivalent to a human half-step king. Hula! Hula! The rest of the green-haired undead spirits clapped their hands and shouted in unison. This should be undead spirit language. Yixing couldn't understand what it meant. Hee hee. The undead spirit leader, which was equivalent to a half-step king, let out an ear-piercing laugh. In the next instant, its figure flashed like a stream of light and charged toward Yixing facing a half-step king. Yixing didn't hesitate to activate the divine dragon essence blood and dragon form. Not much time had passed during the battle with the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon yesterday. The Dark Abyss Flood Dragon had escaped by jumping into the sea, so the burning blood technique didn't consume too much divine dragon essence blood. Yixing's dragon form was still powerful. Dang! With a crisp sound, the undead spirit leader's sharp claw piercing toward Yixing's heart was blocked by Yixing's fist. Yixing's other claw pierced toward the undead spirit leader's chest. Chapter 697. How could the undead leader put Yixing, a 6-star venerable, in its eyes? It had invaded the northern netherworld continent and killed several supremacies. It killed 7-star supremacies and 8-star supremacies in an instant. Then, it would pounce on them and suck them dry in just a few dozen breaths. Therefore, when the undead leader's claws pierced towards Yixing, it opened its mouth and revealed 2 sharp teeth, biting towards Yixing's neck. In the end, the claws piercing towards Yixing's chest were blocked by Yixing, which shocked the undead leader. Yixing's sharp dragon claws pierced towards the undead leader's chest, which shocked the latter even more. Only now did it realize that the 6-star venerable in front of it was not inferior to it. The undead leader's body trembled and it quickly retreated. However, Yixing's dragon claws were even faster. Ding! A crisp sound rang out as if it had pierced a solid steel body. The undead leader's body was too sturdy. Yixing's dragon claws were so sharp that they could easily pierce through the chest of an ordinary green-furred undead. However, it only left a hole less than half an inch deep on the undead leader's body. Of course, it was impossible to dig out the corpse jade in its chest. However, Yixing's reaction speed was extremely fast. Since the undead leader was already close to him, how could Yixing allow it to escape? Taking a step forward, his figure followed closely behind the undead leader like a maggot attached to a bone. Before the undead leader could retract its claws that were piercing towards Yixing's heart, Yixing grabbed its wrist and locked it. The undead leader struggled fiercely, but Yixing's dragon claws were like iron pliers. Its wrist was locked and it could not break free. With its wrist locked, the distance between the two could not be increased. The undead leader knew that its strength was not as good as Yixing's, so it naturally knew what would happen. No matter how sturdy its body was, it could not withstand Yixing's continuous attacks. If it did not break free, the corpse jade would be dug out by Yixing sooner or later. Gurgle! The undead leader screamed. All the green-haired undead spirits suddenly went berserk. They all rushed towards Yixing, stretched out their sharp claws, and launched a storm of attacks at Yixing. Yixing used the dragon clan's martial arts and swung the undead leader like a weapon. The undead spirit leader's strength was equivalent to a half-step king, and it wasn't much weaker than Zhuo Jinghai. However, it was still far from the half-step demonic beast king Dark Abyss Flood Dragon. As soon as Yixing used the dragon clan's martial arts, the undead spirit leader had almost no power to resist. It flew up and down in Yixing's hands, and the green-furred undead spirits that charged at it were all sent flying. Whoosh! Yixing's figure was like lightning. He pulled the undead leader and caught up with a green-haired undead. His dragon claws were like blades, instantly piercing the green-haired undead's chest. With a fierce pull, the corpse jade was pulled out. A green-haired undead was killed. The undead spirit leader was furious. One of its hands was held by Yixing's dragon claws, and it couldn't move. However, its other hand stabbed towards Yixing's eyes. Yixing pulled the undead spirit leader and swung it. At the same time, the undead spirit leader's attack was undone. Pang! The undead spirit leader had just landed on the ground when Yixing fiercely punched its head. Although the head wasn't a vital point, the violent impact still made the undead spirit leader somewhat dazed. Immediately, Yixing pulled the undead spirit leader and charged towards another green-haired undead. In the next instant, the green-haired undead in front of them died, and another corpse jade was in their hands. Yixing in his dragon transformation state was too powerful. Especially when he used the dragon clan's martial arts, his strength had multiplied, and he had greatly surpassed half-step kings. These green-haired undead were naturally not his match. The undead spirit leader's strength was equivalent to half-step kings. Originally, it could have fought a few rounds with Yixing. Even if it wasn't his match, it could have retreated. Unfortunately, it had underestimated Yixing at the beginning, and its wrist was grabbed by Yixing. Thus, its movements were restricted, and its strength was completely useless in front of Yixing. Now, the undead spirit leader's face was green with regret. However, it was useless. It could only watch as the green-haired undead died one after another under Yixing's hands. As long as the undead spirit leader had a little bit of control over its body, Yixing would immediately swing it up and use it as a weapon to attack. Otherwise, he would give it a few punches, making it dizzy and unable to control its body. It was completely unable to counterattack against Yixing. Undead spirits had a strict hierarchy. With the leader of this group in Yixing's hands, the other green-haired undead didn't dare to escape. They all madly attacked Yixing, wanting to save their leader. For Yixing, this was a great thing. If they fled in all directions, even with Yixing's strength and speed, he wouldn't be able to kill many of them. As long as they escaped into the sea, Yixing wouldn't be able to do anything to them. But now, Yixing had captured their leader. None of the green-haired undead ran away. Yixing killed them one after another, obtaining corpse jades one after another. He was very happy. He couldn't wait for these green-haired undead to stay and fight to the death. Then, he would be able to obtain more than 50 profound grade corpse jades in this battle. Moreover, there would be 5th grade and 6th grade corpse jades, which would be of great use to Yixing's future cultivation. If the undead spirit leader was killed by Yixing, the remaining green-haired undead would lose their leader and naturally escape. Yixing deliberately left the undead spirit leader alive. However, the undead spirit leader didn't care about the other green-haired undead. It only wanted the other green-haired undead to injure Yixing, giving it a chance to escape. Therefore, at the end of the battle, none of the green-haired undead were able to escape. All of them had their corpse jades dug out by Yixing. Even the 2 9th-star Venerable Lord level green-haired undead died in Yixing's hands. Their corpse jades were 6th grade profound grade. After killing all the green-haired undead, it was the undead spirit leader's turn. Under Yixing's attacks, the undead spirit leader's body was useless no matter how sturdy it was. The corpse jade in its chest was dug out by Yixing, and the undead spirit leader was dead. The corpse jade in the undead leader's chest was also a profound grade 6 corpse jade. However, both the Star Yuan Qi and the Death Qi were richer than the profound grade 6 corpse jade in the chest of the green-haired undead, who was equivalent to a 9th-star Venerable Lord. While Yixing was admiring the profound grade 6 corpse jade he had dug out from the undead leader's chest, a burst of strange laughter suddenly rang out. Ahahaha. Ahahaha. This voice was clearly discovered from the undead spirit leader's body. Yixing was shocked. His body shot back dozens of meters as he vigilantly looked at the corpse of the undead spirit leader. This king knew it. Just by hiding my will in the body of a green-grade undead, I can pass through the spatial crack. This king has succeeded. This king has succeeded. Ahahaha. Ahahahaha. A skull-shaped black chi rose from the undead spirit leader's body. Its mouth opened and closed as it let out an ear-piercing laughter. Chapter 698. As soon as Yixing heard the skull's black gas calling itself this king, he was shocked. This was obviously a death spirit king's spiritual will, which was attached to a half-step king's body and came to the star continent. The spiritual will of a king was too frightening. Yixing did not even think about it as the azure cloud wings appeared behind him. His body soared into the sky, and he decided to escape first. I smell the surging vitality, I smell the delicious blood, ah, this world is too beautiful. The skull had an intoxicated expression. When it saw Yixing flying into the sky, it immediately chased after him. My body, don't run. Without a body, this king can only watch and can't do anything. This body's aptitude is good, and it's already a 6-star venerable at such a young age. It's too good to be this king's body. Don't run, my body. The skull chased after Yixing while mumbling. Even if Yixing pushed his speed to the limit, the skull's speed was still much faster than him. Whoosh! Yixing instantly took out the black crow bow and shot an arrow. The starlight arrow instantly penetrated the skull, but it was useless. The starlight arrow seemed to have penetrated through the air and shot into the distance. And the skull chased after him without the slightest injury. In just a few breaths' time, the skull caught up with Yixing. Yixing punched out, and the fist aura directly penetrated the skull like the starlight arrow, as if the skull did not exist. In the next moment, the skull directly rushed into Yixing's body and appeared in the space between Yixing's eyebrows. Ahahaha. 1, 2, 3, you actually have 3 astrological signs. good body, not only good cultivation talent, but also so many astrological signs. This king is rich, rich. The skull looked at the 3 astrological signs in Yixing's glabella space and laughed happily and excitedly. Deep in the space between Yixing's eyebrows, there was a ripple. A miniature version of Yixing stood in the middle of this ripple. This was Yixing's spiritual source, his soul. All of his thoughts came from this source. The skull's empty eye sockets locked onto Yixing's spiritual essence and rushed over. Little guy, leave my body. Oh, no, you don't need to leave. I don't have a body now. I'm in a spiritual state. I can swallow you directly. Crack, 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 crack. The lower jaws of the skull kept biting and colliding with each other, creating a series of clashing sounds as it bit towards Yixing's spirit source. Who before the skull could get close to Yixing's spiritual source, the space around the ripple area suddenly spun and formed a black whirlpool. The black hole astrological sign that occupied half of the space between Yixing's eyebrows disappeared and turned into a black whirlpool, protecting Yixing's spiritual source. The center of the black whirlpool was very calm. Yixing's spiritual source was not damaged at all. In fact, Yixing could feel that this black whirlpool could forcefully attract the surrounding energy to its center. It had a strong devouring effect. Around the black whirlpool, there was no other energy other than the skull's spiritual energy. The black whirlpool devoured the spiritual energy, making Yixing's spiritual source even stronger. What the hell is this? This king's spiritual will is not under my control. Don't. This king does not want to collapse, do not want to disappear. The skull spun rapidly in the black whirlpool. Its shape was elongated and distorted, and its spiritual energy was spreading. Hera, Hera, Hera. The twisted skull suddenly chanted in the language of the dead. The elongated skull was affected by a powerful force and returned to its original shape, rushing out of the black whirlpool. Whoosh! The skull rushed out of Yixing's eyebrow space, rushing out of Yixing's body and into the distance in an instant. An ear-piercing voice came from afar, if this king can't use such an excellent body, then this king will devour you. Just you wait, this king will devour you sooner or later. Hu Yixing let out a long sigh. His body was drenched in cold sweat. Fortunately, he had the black hole astrology. Otherwise, if his spiritual source was devoured, it would be the same as his soul being destroyed. In other words, Yixing would truly die. Although Yixing's body hadn't died, it had been occupied by another spiritual body. He was already a different person. Yixing looked in the direction the skull disappeared, and his expression suddenly changed. He cried out in alarm, "Not good, this skull is the spiritual consciousness of a king. If it wants to possess someone, no martial artist in the Sea of Dark prison can resist it. One of them will suffer." As he thought of the martial artists in the Sea of Dark prison, one of them would definitely be possessed. However, this martial artist would have the soul of the Death Spirit King, but would also have a human body and be able to integrate into the human world. Yixing felt some fear. I wonder who will suffer. Please don't let it be Qingxian. Qingxuan's father is a supreme being of his generation. He shouldn't allow his daughter to be possessed. He should have left behind some method, so the one who will be possessed should be someone else. In the Sea of Dark prison, there are High Lords of the Dark Star religion, the Great Yuan dynasty, and the High Lords of various high-grade empires. No matter who it is, being possessed isn't a good result. But, I hope that the High Lords of the Dark Star religion won't encounter this skull. No matter who you possess, I will find you in the future. Yixing silently thought, his eyes bursting with a resolute light. Yixing didn't care about the skull right now. He could only continue towards the edge of the Sea of Dark prison. Every time he arrived at a large island, Yixing would stop and release his cultivation, waiting for the green-furred dead spirits to come to their deaths. Yixing was both the perfect bait and the powerful main force. He alone could kill all the green-furred dead spirits that appeared. It had to be said that this method was very good. There were always green-furred dead spirits that sensed Yixing's aura and rushed towards Yixing like sharks that had smelled blood. Yixing also mastered the method to kill all the green-furred dead spirits. He had to control the leader of the group first. As long as the leader didn't die, the rest of the green-furred dead spirits wouldn't escape. In the end, they would all be killed by Yixing. This method was tried and tested time and time again. After several hunts, Yixing had more than 100 mystic corpse jades. Although most of them were low-grade mystic corpse jades, there were also many mid-grade mystic corpse jades. If Yixing could directly absorb these corpse jades, it would be enough for him to break through to the 9-star supremacy realm. Damn that Meng Yuanxing. He stole my Starfire seed. Otherwise, I could have used the Starfire seed to refine the deathly aura in the corpse jades and absorb them endlessly. Yixing looked at the corpse jades in his hand, but he couldn't use them. He was furious when he thought of Meng Yuanxing, the crown prince of Deyuan, who had stolen his Starfire seed. Usually, the role of the Starfire seed wasn't obvious. Now that Yixing had obtained a large number of corpse jades, the importance of the Starfire seed was immediately reflected. Chapter 699 That if the Starfire seed was still in Yixing's hands, he would have been able to break through to the 9th level of the astral reaching realm and become a 9th-star Venerable Lord. After becoming a 9th-star Venerable Lord, Yixing's strength would be enough to challenge kings. With the power to protect himself, he would be able to leave the ocean of Black Prison and roam the world freely. Unfortunately, the Starfire seed wasn't in his hands. Meng Yuanxing. One day, you will fall into my hands. Yixing clenched his fists and muttered. While Yixing was waiting for the green-haired undead spirit to take the initiative to die on an island, the skull finally found a suitable target to possess. The skull was very sensitive to human qi and blood. It could sense them even from far away. Moreover, its flying speed was very fast. Therefore, it didn't take long for it to find other martial artists. The skull didn't care about ordinary bodies. After picking a few teams, it finally found a target. This was the second team of the Dark Star sect. There was a handsome and elegant man in the team. Not only was he handsome, but his cultivation talent was also pretty good. He was 32 years old and already an 8th-star Venerable Lord. This handsome and elegant man was naturally the young master of the Dark Star sect, Shui Yupeng. When he was in the cultivation Saint Pond, Shui Yupeng was only a little bit away from breaking through to the 8th-star Venerable Lord. Afterwards, he faced the wall for 3 months and went into seclusion in the reflection room to consolidate his cultivation. When he reached the ocean of Black Prison, he relied on the corpse jade to break through to the 8th-star Venerable Lord. Although a 32-year-old 8th-star Venerable Lord couldn't compare to Yixing's 22-year-old 6th-star Venerable Lord, the skull checked a few teams and found that Shui Yupeng's aptitude was the best. The skull didn't dare to have any fantasies about Yixing naturally. Shui Yupeng was the best target to possess. The skull silently entered the ground and arrived at Shui Yupeng's feet, drilling into his body. In the next moment, the skull appeared in the space between Shui Yupeng's eyebrows. A black skull suddenly appeared in the space between his eyebrows, giving Shui Yupeng a fright. He exclaimed, "Who is it? Young sect master, what did you find?" Shui Yupeng's exclamation made the other high lords of the second squad perk up. They looked around vigilantly. However, there was nothing around him. In the space between Shui Yupeng's eyebrows, there was only one astrological image, which was a huge purple lightning ball. The skull laughed mischievously. Naturally, only Shui Yupeng could hear his voice. Don't panic, don't panic. This king has taken a fancy to your body, which is also my body in the future. Be obedient and let this king devour you. This king will keep your memories. If you have any last wishes, this king will fulfill them for you. What is it? Get out, get out. Shui Yupeng realized that his body was about to be possessed. His face was filled with fear as he shouted. Young Hierarch. What happened to young Cult Master? I'm not dreaming, am I? Or sleepwalking? Young Cult Master didn't see him fall asleep just now. Maybe he was sleeping with his eyes open. Hurry and wake him up. Young Cult Master. Young Cult Master, wake up. The High Lord saw that Shui Yupeng was spouting nonsense as if he was sleepwalking. Two of them even grabbed Shui Yupeng from the left and right and shook him. However, the skull in the space between Shui Yupeng's eyebrows had already pounced on Shui Yupeng's spiritual origin. Shui Yupeng's attention was on the space between his eyebrows, so he couldn't care less about the others. Ah! Shui Yupeng suddenly hugged his head and screamed in pain. The skull was too ruthless. It rushed up and bit Shui Yupeng's spiritual origin. Magnetic, suddenly, lightning flashed around Shui Yupeng's spiritual origin. His lightning astrological image split off a lot of electricity to protect Shui Yupeng's spiritual origin. Lightning was very harmful to spiritual bodies. The skull trembled from the electricity. However, Shui Yupeng's lightning astrological image was only at the supreme level. It couldn't be compared to Yixing's supreme black hole astrological image. Yixing's black hole astrological image used all its power to protect the spiritual origin. However, Shui Yupeng's lightning astrological image only used part of its power to protect the spiritual origin. Therefore, although the skull was trembling from the electricity, it could still withstand it. Crack! Enduring the electric shock, the black skull rushed up and bit Shui Yupeng's spiritual origin again. How painful was it to have one's soul torn apart? Ah! Shui Yupeng hugged his head and screamed in pain. He rolled on the ground. Young Cult Master, are you okay? Young Cult Master. The High Lords were shocked. They were all pale. In the space between Huang Xiaolong's eyebrows, the skull sneered. Wouldn't it be better if you just let me swallow you? That way, you won't be in so much pain. I'll help you fulfill your last wish. If you continue to struggle, I'll slowly bite you to death. I'll make you suffer until you die. Then, I'll erase your memory. Shui Yupeng was in so much pain that he shouted, Okay, I promise you. Give me a quick death. I only have 2 wishes. One is for Yixing to die, and the other is to overthrow the great Yuan dynasty. I want to become the new Supreme King, the ruler of the Star Continent. Yixing's image flashed across Shui Yupeng's spiritual origin. The skull laughed mischievously and said, So it's this guy. Ha! I also want him dead. As for becoming the ruler of the Star Continent, isn't that my goal? Kid, your ambition is pretty good, and you have a bright future ahead of you. Of course, I'll help you fulfill your last wishes. Now, give up resisting, relax, and you'll be free. The pain of his soul being torn apart had already made Shui Yupeng lose the courage to resist. He immediately removed the protection of the thunder astrology. Crack! Now that the skull was free of its restraints, it suddenly grew larger. It opened its mouth and swallowed Shui Yupeng's spiritual source. Shui Yupeng's spiritual origin was erased. He instantly lost consciousness and his face lost its color. Young Cult Master. When the Supremacies saw this, they were horrified. The young sect master had died for no reason at all. Just when the High Lords thought that Shui Yupeng was dead, Shui Yupeng suddenly sat up. He raised his hands and looked at them. Then, he glanced at the High Lords and looked into the distance. What a beautiful world. Shui Yupeng sighed. The High Lords looked at Shui Yupeng in surprise. The leader of the second team, Shimen Hong, asked, Young Cult Master, what happened to you? Are you okay? Delicious food. Shui Yupeng sighed in his heart. However, he smiled and said, I'm fine, I'm fine. It seems that I was too tired from looking for the green-haired monsters these days. I fell asleep just now and had a nightmare. I dreamed that I was surrounded by green-haired monsters. They were tearing my flesh and blood. It gave me a fright. Fortunately, when I woke up, I realized that it was just a dream. The dream was too cruel. The real world is so beautiful and delicious. Already 700 chapters. There will be more updates today. Looking for monthly votes, go. Chapter 700. It's good that the young lord is fine. Shi Minhong found it strange, but seeing that Shui Yupeng was fine, he didn't think too much about it. Young lord, you were too scary just now. Yes, if anything happened to the young lord, how would we explain it to the young lord? It's good that the young lord is fine. It was a false alarm. The high lords patted their chests and let out a sigh of relief. Haha, haha, it was just a dream. I've made a fool of myself. Shui Yupeng smiled. I've rested enough. Let's use the old method to lure the green-furred monster out. Young lord, do you want to rest some more? A 9-star high lord asked. No need. I've rested well. I can't wait any longer. Ha! Shui Yupeng smiled brightly. If Yi Xing and the others could think of a method to lure the green-furred monster out, the second squad could also think of one. The others weren't suitable to be the bait. Shui Yupeng's cultivation wasn't high, but he was strong. He was the best choice for the bait. He wanted to obtain more corpse jades, so he took the initiative to be the bait. The members of the second squad waited here. Shui Yupeng flew into the sky and headed for another island 200 miles away. Once the green-furred monster was lured out, Shui Yupeng would inform everyone to surround and kill it. Shui Yupeng soon arrived at the other island. He began to chant the incantation of the undead race, spreading it out in all directions. Before long, a group of undead was summoned by the incantation and arrived at the island Shui Yupeng was on. The green-furred undead looked at Shui Yupeng from afar. They were a bit surprised and didn't dare to approach. The person who was chanting the incantation was actually a human 8-star high lord. This puzzled them. Sito. Gugiliji, Spada. When Shui Yupeng spoke the language of the undead, the eyes of the green-furred undead lit up. It was as if they suddenly understood something. They all knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Shui Yupeng. Soon, a second group of undead arrived at the island. Similarly, when Shui Yupeng spoke the language of the undead, the green-furred undead all knelt down. Not long after, another group of undead spirits arrived. Within a short period of time, 4 groups of undead spirits had rushed over after hearing Shui Yupeng's call. Under Shui Yupeng's command, most of the green-furred undead scattered around the mountain peaks and hid themselves. Only a small group was left to surround and attack him. Delicious food is about to be delivered to our doorstep. Shui Yupeng muttered to himself. He licked his lips and used his communication pearl to send a message to Shi Minhong and the others. Shi Minhong led the second squad of high lords and quickly killed their way over. Their eyes were filled with excitement. This time, there were a lot of green-furred undead. They would be able to obtain a lot of profound grade corpse jades. The high lords immediately joined the battle. Seeing that the green-furred monster didn't run away, Shi Minhong laughed loudly and said, "Young sect leader, this time we have a good harvest, ha." As he laughed, Shi Minhong rushed in front of Shui Yupeng and blocked the attack of the undead leader. Shi Minhong suddenly felt a chill in his heart. His laughter stopped abruptly. He lowered his head and saw a treasured saber piercing through his body. The tip of the saber came out from his chest and directly pierced through his heart. At this moment, the person standing behind him was the Dark Star sect's young sect leader, Shui Yupeng. Even though Shimin Hong was a half-step king, with his heart pierced, his life was rapidly draining away. His face was pale, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. The rest of the High Lords hadn't seen Zhui Yupeng's action. Those who saw it were shocked, and their eyes were also filled with disbelief. The dignified young sect leader was actually waving his saber at his own people while fighting the green-furred monster. How could they believe this? Young sect leader, what are you doing? Senior brother Shimin. Some High Lords screamed. At this moment, most of the High Lords who hadn't noticed Shimin Hong looked over, and they were all dumbstruck. At the same time, more and more green-furred monsters rushed out from their hiding places and pounced on the High Lords. Under the shocked gazes of the High Lords, Zhui Yupeng opened his mouth wide. In an instant, 2 long fangs grew out and bit into Shimin Hong's neck. At this moment, they realized that young sect leader Zhui Yupeng had turned into a monster and was on the same side as the green-furred monsters. However, it was already too late. There were too many green-furred monsters rushing over. While the High Lords were still in shock, they were a lot slower. They didn't even have time to send out a message before they were drowned by the green-furred monsters. The entire second team was wiped out. Shimin Hong's corpse dried up at a speed visible to the naked eye. In a short few dozen breaths, his flesh and blood were all dried up, and he turned into a human-skinned skeleton. Delicious. How could there be such delicious food in the world of death? Zhui Yupeng's face was filled with intoxication. Soon, Zhui Yupeng pounced on the corpse of another 9th-star High Lord and continued to devour its flesh and blood. After sucking this 9th-star High Lord dry, Zhui Yupeng burped. Touching his bloated stomach, Zhui Yupeng muttered, "This body's cultivation is still too low. It has no appetite at all. I only ate 2 and I'm already full. However, even though my cultivation is low, my improvement is fast. After digesting this flesh and blood, I should be able to reach the peak of the 8th-star High Lord realm. At that time, I'll be able to break through to the 9th-star High Lord realm. If I can devour the flesh and blood of a king, it shouldn't take me too long to become a king." He. After saying that, Zhui Yupeng waved his hand and the green-furred undead swarmed forward. Several green-furred undead bit on the same corpse and soon all the corpses were turned into human-skinned skeletons. Throw them all into the sea. After that, pass on this king's order. All the undead are to hide in the depths of the Sea of Black Prison and not show themselves. After this king's human body becomes a king, I'll summon you. At that time, this king will bring you to conquer the entire star continent and raise all the humans in captivity. You can eat one whenever you want." Zhui Yupeng ordered the green-furred undead in the language of the dead. All the green-furred undead were delighted. They knelt down and bowed to Zhui Yupeng. Then, carrying the human-skinned skeletons on the ground, they jumped into the Sea of Black Prison and spread out to deliver the order of the King of Dead Souls. Next, it's time to live the life of a human. The undead only know how to eat and digest. The life of a human is so colorful. Just thinking about it makes me excited. Zhui Yupeng smiled faintly and muttered to himself. Suddenly, he made a move and made himself look very wretched, as if he had just escaped death after a great battle. Whoosh! Zhui Yupeng soared into the sky and flew into the distance. With his perception of blood qi, it was easy for him to distinguish which direction had human martial artists. Soon, Zhui Yupeng found a team of the Dark Star sect nearby. "Help! Help me!" Zhui Yupeng shouted in horror from afar. "It's the young master. The young master is injured. My God! The second team must have been severely injured. Hurry up and save the young master. The 7th update is here. The 8th update will be here too." Chapter 701. Yixing waited on the island for a long time, but the green-haired undead did not appear. Could it be that there isn't even a team of green-haired undead nearby? Yixing was surprised as he flew into the sky. After flying for thousands of miles, Yixing landed on another island. There might be green-haired undead nearby. However, after waiting for a long time, the green-haired undead still did not appear. Yixing changed his position again. After changing positions 5 times, Yixing did not lure out a single green-haired undead. How strange! Yixing muttered as he sat on a huge rock on the island. Previously, he had encountered many green-haired undead attacks. However, all of a sudden, it seemed that all of them had disappeared. Yixing's eyes suddenly lit up. He sensed that something was approaching. Yixing opened his martial Dao heavenly eye and looked into the distance. He looked in the direction he sensed and a disappointed expression appeared on his face. Unlucky, Yixing muttered. It wasn't any green-haired undead that came, but a team of high lords from the Great Yuan dynasty. When Yixing was in the first team was very strong. The Great Yuan dynasty team was also quite fearful and did not dare to make a move. However, Yixing was alone now. It was obvious that if he was discovered by the Great Yuan dynasty team, he would definitely be attacked by them. Although Yixing was not afraid of them, this was the Sea of Black Prison. There were green-haired undead. Any martial artist who died in the Sea of Black Prison could become food for the green-haired undead. Yixing was unwilling to fight with them here. Moreover, the Dark Star sect leader had also instructed him to avoid the Great Yuan dynasty team as much as possible. Yixing immediately soared into the sky and flew in the opposite direction. Yixing was on an island. The group from the Great Yuan dynasty noticed him from afar. There were supremacies among them who cultivated eye techniques. They were sizing up the island and saw Yixing. Captain, there was someone on the island just now. I think it was that demon star of troubled times Yixing. Yixing was the #1 assassin of De Meng's Supreme King Indian. He was also a De Yuan King Lord, so of course he would recognize him. The Great Yuan dynasty had a lot more High Lords than the Dark Star sect. The teams they sent out all had half-step kings and 3 or 4 9-star High Lords, while the rest were all 8-star High Lords. The captain of this team was the half-step king of the Meng clan, Meng Zhongshui. Meng Zhongshui's younger brother, Meng Zhongshan, had died at the hands of Yixing in a life-and-death gambling match. Regardless of whether it was for public or private grudges, Meng Zhongshui had killed Yixing and made him the bureau chief. Encountering Yixing in the ocean of dark prison caused Meng Zhongshui's killing intent to erupt. Meng Zhongshui immediately opened his martial Dao heavenly eye and looked at the island before him. He shouted, Meng Tianfang, where is Yixing? Yixing's speed was extremely fast. Although Meng Zhongshui was a half-step king, his eyesight was inferior to the 9-star High Lord Meng Tianfang, who cultivated eye techniques. Meng Tianfang pointed in the direction Yixing had flown and said, he ran that way. Meng Zhongshui waved his hand and said, chase. Yixing is alone. The heavens want him to fall in our hands. Kill him and the Supreme King will reward us handsomely. The High Lords cheered in unison and raised their speed to the limit, chasing after Yixing. At the same time, Meng Zhongshui took out the speed communication pearl and sent it to the Great Yuan dynasty's team ahead, telling them to intercept Yixing. Yixing didn't want to meet the Great Yuan dynasty's martial artists in the ocean of dark prison to avoid a life-and-death battle. However, with the pursuers behind and the obstructions in front, it was impossible for Yixing to escape even if he wanted to. In the end, Yixing was intercepted by 2 Great Yuan dynasty's teams on a small island. The 2 teams, one in front and one behind, sandwiched Yixing in the middle, eyeing him covetously. The half-step king Meng Zhongshui's eyes revealed a sinister glint as he said, Yixing, the heavens have sent you to our hands. Let's see where you can run now. Today, you are destined to die. Yixing's gaze fell on Meng Zhongshui as he said, "If we fight in the ocean of dark prison, won't we be letting those green-furred monsters take advantage of us? They will become stronger by devouring the flesh and blood of martial artists. Is this good?" Meng Zhongshui sneered, "How strong can your corpse make those green-furred monsters? Don't worry, I won't leave you with an intact corpse. I'll burn you to ashes, not even leaving behind a single trace." Yixing's cold gaze swept over the reverends lying on the ground as he said, "I'm talking about you guys. Don't force me to start a massacre. I don't want to kill too many people in the ocean of dark prison." "You, start a massacre?" Meng Zhongshui's voice was filled with contempt, causing the reverends to roar with laughter. The martial artists present were all high-level astral-reaching realm reverends. Moreover, they were at least 8-star reverends. The number of 9-star reverends wasn't small either, and there were even 2 half-step kings. Among these 20 reverends, at least half of them were experts on the reverend list. The strongest among them was even one of the top half-step kings. On the other hand, Yixing was only one person, and a mere 6-star reverend at that. How could the reverends put him in their eyes? Yixing's eyes squinted. His gaze condensed and gradually turned sharp. He didn't want to kill people in the ocean of dark prison, but that didn't mean he wouldn't kill people in the ocean of dark prison. If the other party insisted on taking his life, then he would have no choice but to ruthlessly kill them all. "Meng Tianfang, do you have the confidence to deal with him?" Meng Zhongshui glanced at Meng Tianfang. Meng Tianfang was ranked 19 on the reverend list. There were 72 people on the reverend list. The reverends hadn't stepped into the astral sea realm yet. Even half-step kings were still considered reverends. The top 15 on the reverend list were all half-step kings. In other words, among the 9-star reverends, only 3 of them were ranked higher than Meng Tianfang. From this, it could be seen that Meng Tianfang's strength was definitely at the peak among the 9-star reverends. He was extremely close to half-step kings. Meng Tianfang smiled relaxedly, "Even if he has the strength of a 9-star reverend, I'm more than enough to deal with him." Meng Tianfang knew that when Yixing was a 3-star reverend, he already had the strength of a 7-star reverend. Now that he was a 6-star reverend, his strength must be even more heaven-defying. However, the higher the level, the more difficult it would be to challenge someone of a higher level. Reverends were all high-level astral-reaching realm experts. Every level would have a huge difference in strength. In Meng Tianfang's opinion, he had already overestimated Yixing's strength by judging him as a 9-star reverend. Moreover, his strength was almost unrivaled in the same realm. Of course, he had full confidence in dealing with Yixing. Meng Zhongshui nodded, "All right, capture him alive. I'll let him slowly taste the taste of death." The corner of Meng Tianfang's mouth raised, revealing a trace of a cruel smile. His eyelids blinked, and his eyes suddenly changed color. He walked towards Yixing. Yixing raised his hand, and the dark crow bow appeared in his hand. Without waiting for Yixing to draw the bow, Meng Tianfang's gaze sharpened. Yixing felt a sharp aura slicing towards his throat. 8th update, is it cruel enough? Please vote for me. Chapter 702. The sharp aura was a wind blade. It appeared too suddenly and was too fast. It was out of Yixing's expectation, and Yixing instantly felt the threat of death. Without any time to think, Yixing unleashed all his strength. The dark crow bow in his hand made a loud sound and a starlight ripple shot out. Yixing became one with the bow and his speed was godly. The starlight ripple appeared at an unbelievable speed and hit the wind blade that was about to cut Yixing's neck. Although the wind blade was sharp, it was not tough. It was similar to the starlight ripple and both were destroyed when they collided. Meng Tianfang exclaimed softly. Meng Tianfang thought that even if the eye of the wind blade could not decapitate Yixing, it could at least severely injure Yixing. However, he did not expect Yixing to be able to react in time and block the eye of the wind blade without suffering any damage. Swoosh! 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 3 rays of starlight shot out from Yixing's glabella into the sky. Yixing had used 3 astrological aspects at the same time. The black hole astrological aspect and the Sagittarius astrological aspect were above Yixing while the flame astrological aspect was further away. The 3 astrological aspects poured down the power of the stars. The black hole astrological aspect formed a dark world, the Sagittarius astrological aspect enhanced archery skills, and the flame astrological aspect enhanced Yixing's power. The surrounding fire origin chi gathered around his body and raged. Yixing knew that Meng Tianfang's strength was terrifying from the first exchange. If he did not use his dragon form, he would have to use his full strength. The 3 astrological aspects bloomed and Yixing instantly pulled the dark crow bow into a full moon. In the blink of an eye, a starlight arrow was formed. Yixing's archery skills were profound and his one with the bow had reached the 2nd level. The power of his archery skills was already terrifying. With the addition of the Sagittarius astrological aspect, all the 9 star supremacies present felt their hearts skip a beat. Meng Tianfang also felt the same and was shocked. Yixing's strength was more terrifying than he had imagined. He was able to threaten his life. Wind blade spiral. Meng Tianfang shouted as a vortex of wind seemed to gather in his eyes. He then glared at Yixing fiercely. At the same time, Meng Tianfang took a step forward. While he cast an eye technique in his eyes, he also unleashed a middle-grade Xian martial saber. A middle-grade Xian martial saber slashed at Yixing, kill. Yixing shouted as the starlight arrow left the bowstring and shot toward Meng Tianfang's saber. As soon as the starlight arrow left the bowstring, Yixing pulled the bowstring back and released it. His speed was extremely fast, and a starlight ripple shot out. Its speed was not any slower than the starlight arrow's speed. The rapidly spinning wind blade was struck by the starlight ripple. At the same time, the starlight arrow collided with Meng Tianfang's blade aura. Explosions sounded at the same time. Meng Tianfang was slightly shocked and took a step back. He was shocked. He had not expected Yixing's archery skills to be so powerful. However, although he had lost to Yixing in a head-on fight, his eye technique had turned the tables. The wind blade spiral was the most terrifying skill of the wind blade eye technique. Even though the starlight ripple that Yixing shot out was much sharper than before, it was unable to split the spinning wind blade apart. It only slowed down the speed of the wind blade slightly. 9th Heaven God's travel technique. Yixing activated the force of wind to the extreme. His body was like a ray of light as he dodged Meng Tianfang's eye technique attack. He pulled the Wu Xian bao into a full moon again and shot a starlight arrow at Meng Tianfang. Meng Tianfang's gaze followed Yixing's movements. No matter how fast Yixing moved, he could not be faster than Meng Tianfang's gaze. The spinning wind blade followed closely behind Yixing. Meng Tianfang's eye technique was powerful, but he was also very wary of Yixing's archery skills. He immediately dodged the arrow. The starlight arrow's direction of attack changed according to Meng Tianfang's movements. Meng Tianfang dodged 8 times in the blink of an eye, but the starlight arrow still caught up with him. He had no choice but to use his blade to block it. He used his blade in a hurry, but the power of the starlight arrow did not decrease at all. The dark weapon blade hit the starlight arrow and a terrifying shockwave exploded. Meng Tianfang's body shook and he retreated continuously with a shocked expression. Meng Tianfang's gaze was still locked on Yixing. The spinning wind blade was like a maggot that had fallen into a bone. No matter how fast Yixing moved, it followed him closely. To Meng Tianfang's disappointment. Bang! There was a loud bang. The black profound bow in Yixing's hands was simply too nimble. It was as if it was part of his arm. Yixing had just shot out an arrow, and at the critical moment, he pulled the bowstring once more. Starlight ripples shot out. The spinning wind blade that was about to catch up with Yixing was hit by the starlight ripple. It slowed down instantly and distanced itself from Yixing again. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yixing, who was moving like a shooting star, shot another arrow at Meng Tianfang. Arrow after arrow, Yixing's aura became stronger with every arrow he shot. The power of each arrow was stronger than the previous one. The reason why Meng Tianfang could be ranked 19th on the list of supremacies and become one of the most powerful 9-star supremacies was because of the combination of his eye technique and his martial arts skills. It was impossible to defend against his attacks. However, the combination of Meng Tianfang's eye technique and martial arts skills did not have much effect in front of Yixing. The bow and arrow were too flexible in Yixing's hands, and the speed of his attacks was too fast. Meng Tianfang's eye technique was useless. Apart from the enhancement of his eye technique, Meng Tianfang's abilities were only slightly above average among the 9-star supremacies. It was incomparable to the power of Yixing's archery skills. Meng Tianfang could not block the third arrow. Although he slashed with his saber at lightning speed and caused the starlight arrow to change its direction slightly, the starlight arrow still hit his body. With a thud, Meng Tianfang's shoulder was hit by the arrow, and his body was blasted several miles away by the starlight arrow. Meng Tianfang was injured and could not control his body. The wind blade eye technique could not lock onto Yixing anymore, and the spinning wind blade that was attacking Yixing collapsed on its own. In the next instant, Yixing pulled the bowstring again, and the starlight arrow appeared and locked onto Meng Tianfang, who was several miles away. Whoosh! The void shook as Meng Zhongshui in the distance suddenly attacked. A 30-meter wide water ball shot toward Yixing like a cannonball. The water ball was extremely fast and contained a terrifying power. Yixing did not dare to face it head-on and instantly dodged. He locked onto Meng Tianfang's arrow and did not shoot it. Yixing, your strength is still so heaven-defying. You have indeed exceeded my expectations. Looks like I have to take action myself. Meng Zhongshui shouted coldly. Although these words seemed to be praising Yixing, they were actually filled with killing intent. Meng Zhongshui, you are ranked 6th on the supremacy list. Don't fail to capture a 6-star supremacy. That would be too shameful for my great Yuan dynasty. The half-step king in the opposing team laughed lightly. Today is the first day of the new house renovation. I'm exhausted. That's all for this chapter. There will be more tomorrow. Chapter 703. He was also a half-step king of the Meng clan, and his name was Meng Qi. The Meng royal family was a large family with many branches. Not every Meng family warrior had a harmonious relationship with each other. Between them, there was competition and conflict. There were even some who had enmity. Meng Qi's branch had enmity with Meng Zhongshui's branch, and there was a huge conflict between the two. Meng Qi was ranked 2nd on the supremacy list, even higher than Meng Zhongshui. Just based on this point, Meng Qi always placed himself in a higher position in front of Meng Zhongshui. Meng Zhongshui coldly glanced at Meng Qi and said, Meng Qi, shut your crow's mouth. You think I, Meng Zhongshui, can't capture a mere 6-star venerable? Ridiculous. Meng Qi sneered and said, then I'll watch from here. If you can't do it, don't expect me to save you. But don't worry, if you die, I'll avenge you and slaughter this little bastard. Hee. Yixing coldly glanced at Meng Qi. This person gave him a feeling that he was even stronger than Dark Star Cult's Zhuo Zhenghai. And Zhuo Zhenghai was the strongest half-step king of the Dark Star Cult. It seemed that Meng Qi was the true enemy. Meng Zhongshui coldly snorted and ignored Meng Qi. Whoosh. A beam of starlight soared into the sky. Meng Zhongshui had used his astrology, and it was an extreme water attribute astrology. The water yuan qi in the universe was attracted by Meng Zhongshui and gathered around him like a small river flowing around him. Meng Zhongshui raised his hands and grabbed at his chest. A large amount of water yuan qi condensed between his palms, turning into a surging water ball. Yixing could feel that this small water ball contained a surging power. Once it lost Meng Zhongshui's control, it would definitely explode and produce a shocking might. Such might was something that few half-step kings could resist. Golden dragon scales appeared around Yixing's body, and Yixing instantly dragonized. Meng Zhongshui's strength was a whole level higher than Meng Tianfang's. Yixing had used his full strength to kill Meng Tianfang. If he didn't dragonize, he wouldn't be Meng Zhongshui's match. Hu Yixing had just dragonized when Meng Zhongshui's water ball had already blasted over. With a flash of golden light, Yixing dodged instantly. The water ball exploded where Yixing had been standing. Boom! The explosion created a huge crater in the ground. The exploding water ball created a terrifying shockwave that turned into water arrows that shot out in all directions. The speed at which the water arrow exploded was too fast. Even though Yixing had already dodged several hundred meters away, it still caught up to him in an instant. Yixing waved his golden dragon claws and destroyed all the water arrows that shot at him. If it wasn't for the power of the water ball's explosion, these water arrows were nothing to Yixing. Who in the blink of an eye, Meng Zhongshui condensed another water ball, and with a push of his palms, he blasted it over. Meng Zhongshui's attainments in water momentum were extremely high. Moreover, his control over water yuan qi was even more miraculous. Although it was only a single water martial skill, it was extremely powerful, and it was hard to find a match in the same realm. As the saying went, quality was more important than quantity. Many half-step kings cultivated many kinds of martial skills, but none of them were Meng Zhongshui's match. Yixing's countermeasure was still to dodge. His speed exploded, and he dodged the water ball's direct attack. As for the water arrows after the water ball exploded, they couldn't threaten him and were easily destroyed. Boom 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 boom, one after another, water balls shot at Yixing like cannonballs and exploded. Craters appeared on the ground one after another, and it was a scene of devastation. Yixing originally wanted to use dodging to make Meng Zhongshui's attacks futile, and then counterattack when Meng Zhongshui's stamina was exhausted. However, Meng Zhongshui's attacks became faster and faster, and the might of the water balls increased instead of decreasing. Let's see how long you can dodge. Water Dao's power lasts for a long time, and the water yuan qi in this ocean of black prison is even more abundant. No matter how you dodge, you'll still die under my water explosion mysterious art, ha! Meng Zhongshui loudly roared. Seeing Yixing being forced to dodge everywhere by the water balls, he was extremely happy. He's right. Seems like there's no need to wait any longer. Yixing said inwardly. Who another water ball shot over. This time, Yixing didn't dodge or evade. Instead, he rushed forward and punched out, facing the water ball head-on. Bang! Dragon fist collided with the water ball, and it instantly exploded. Yixing felt a frightening impact, and his body shook as he retreated several steps. Meng Zhongshui's expression was slightly surprised. He was very clear on how frightening his water ball attack was. Yixing had faced it head-on, yet he had only retreated a few steps. His strength was already at the peak of half-step kings. However, he's still a bit lacking compared to me. Meng Qi wants to laugh at me. No way. Meng Zhongshui sneered inwardly. The water yuan qi in all directions was inexhaustible. He grabbed with both hands and condensed another berserk water ball, shooting it at Yixing. Yixing could barely withstand the first head-on collision, but Meng Zhongshui didn't believe that Yixing could withstand the second one. Meng Zhongshui, on the other hand, could continuously blast out a third, a fourth, or even hundreds of water balls. Dragon Race Martial Arts, first move. Facing the water ball shooting over, Yixing knew that he couldn't block it. He immediately used Dragon Race Martial Arts, and a frightening power gushed out of his body, increasing his strength by several folds. Bang! Yixing punched out, and the water ball instantly exploded. A frightening shockwave spread out, but Yixing didn't retreat half a step. What Meng Zhongshui was horrified. Yixing's strength had suddenly increased by another level. It was beyond his expectations. The High Lords watching the battle were also shocked. It was hard to imagine that a 6-star venerable could erupt with such power. It was appalling. Even Meng Qi, who was ranked second on the High Lords list, showed a trace of surprise. His eyes narrowed. Why don't you try taking a punch from me? Yixing smashed the water ball with his fist, then changed his stance and shouted loudly. Yixing had already practiced Dragon Race martial arts to an extremely proficient level. He could change his moves as he pleased. In an instant, he changed from the first move to the 9th move. Bang! Yixing punched out, and a shockwave spread out in the air. With a loud explosion, a bright golden light rushed towards Meng Zhongshui. Die for me. Meng Zhongshui saw that Yixing still had the strength to counterattack. It was very likely that he would be mocked by Meng Qi. He was furious and roared. A huge amount of star power fell from the water star form, and the surrounding water yuan qi shook. Meng Zhongshui pushed his strength to the limit, condensing a huge water ball, and blasted it towards Yixing. In less than a blink of an eye, the water ball collided with Yixing's golden dragon fist. Bang! The explosion shook heaven and earth. The water ball exploded in all directions, but the golden light passed through it. Not good. Meng Zhongshui's pupils shrank. The power of Yixing's punch was much stronger than the previous one. The water ball's explosion couldn't block Yixing's punch at all. Bang! The golden dragon fist instantly arrived in front of Meng Zhongshui and hit his chest. Meng Zhongshui was instantly sent flying like a cannonball. Chapter 704. The power of Yixing's punch was too terrifying. Meng Zhongshui flew several miles away before falling to the ground. Meng Zhongshui spat out blood. His internal organs had been shattered by Yixing's punch. He had suffered a fatal injury. Captain. Meng Zhongshui's team members were horrified. They quickly rushed toward Meng Zhongshui, who was several miles away. Whoosh! Yixing was about to end Meng Zhongshui's life when a fiery red figure appeared in front of him. This person was stepping on the void. His whole body was covered in raging flames. An extremely high-level flame star floated in the sky. It was the captain of the other team, Meng Qi. It seemed that Meng Qi was proficient in the power of fire. Meng Qi was in a good mood after Meng Zhongshui suffered a fatal injury. He smiled faintly and said, "Little bastard, you taught Meng Zhongshui a lesson. This is good and somewhat beyond my expectations. However, I have to tell you that you still have to die. Only death awaits those who make an enemy of the great Yuan dynasty." Yixing's gaze focused on Meng Qi, revealing his killing intent. Although Meng Zhongshui wanted to kill Yixing, at least Meng Zhongshui respected Yixing as his opponent and would not insult Yixing verbally. As for Meng Qi, this was the first time Yixing had met him. Meng Qi kept calling him a little bastard. Yixing had a name. Everyone in the Star Continent knew Yixing's name. It was impossible for Meng Qi not to know. Yixing did not want to waste his breath on a person who did not even call him by his name and directly called him a bastard. What he needed to do was to kill him. Make him shut his mouth forever. Boom! Yixing punched out. It was still the 9th move of the Dragon Clan's martial arts. There was an explosion in the void. The golden fist aura carried impact ripples as it blasted toward Meng Qi. Yixing's action was within Meng Qi's expectations. He sneered, Fire Dragon's 8 skills. Meng Qi's palms formed into claws. He lifted and clawed. Surging fire Yuan Qi gathered under his claws to form a roaring fire dragon. This flaming dragon was vivid and lifelike. Raging flames raged around it, and its might was shocking. The flame dragon followed the momentum of Meng Qi's claw and charged forward, colliding with Yixing's golden fist aura. Boom! After a loud explosion, the flaming dragon paused. Flaming scales on its body splashed everywhere. Yixing's body also trembled as he felt a terrifying force coming at him. He retreated dozens of meters. Meng Qi was indeed much stronger than Meng Qi Shui. He definitely deserved to be ranked second on the sovereign list. Although the Honorable Lord list only included the Honorable Lords of the Deyuan dynasty, those who were ranked high on the Honorable Lord list were definitely among the top of the Honorable Lords in the entire Starland. For example, the Dark Star called Strongest Half-Step King, Zhuo Zhenghai, was only ranked 5th or 6th on the Reverend list. After all, the Great Yuan dynasty was the ruler of the Starland. It had too many honorable lords. To be able to stand out from the many honorable lords and be listed on the honorable lord list was a reflection of one's strength. Since Meng Qi was ranked second on the honorable lord list, his strength could be imagined. Hee hee. I'm not on the same level as that trash Meng Qi Shui. Little bastard, that was just the most ordinary move of the Flaming Dragon 8 arts. Try and take another move from me. Twin Dragon Roar. Meng Qi sneered and shouted. His hands formed into claws as a sea of fire Yuan Qi gathered. Under each of his claws, a flaming dragon was formed. The flaming dragons were controlled by Meng Qi. They both roared and rushed out at the same time, attacking Yixing from the left and right. Just one flaming dragon was enough to force Yixing back. Now that 2 flaming dragons were attacking at the same time, their power could be imagined. The first 9 moves of the dragon race martial arts couldn't be blocked. I must go all out and fight. Yixing thought. Dragon Race Martial Arts, the 16th move. The Dragon Race Martial Arts had 81 moves. Each move was stronger than the previous one. Moreover, after every 9 moves, the power would increase greatly. The power of the 9th move was already very different from the 10th move, not to mention the 16th move, which was much stronger than the 10th move. Whoosh! A terrifying aura erupted from Yixing's body. He threw out 2 punches to meet the 2 flaming dragons attacking from the left and right. 2 explosions sounded at the same time. The 2 flaming dragons collapsed under Yixing's punches, turning into splashes of flames. Although the flaming dragons were lifelike, they were not real flaming dragons. They were formed from flaming astral energy and fire Yuan Qi. Once they received an attack that exceeded their limit, they would collapse. Meng Qi's eyes revealed a look of shock. Yixing's strength had increased by another level. This was completely beyond his expectations. At this moment, Meng Qi had lost his composure. Yixing always made others think that his strength had reached its limit and that he had used all his trump cards. In the next moment, his strength would increase greatly. The feeling he gave others was as if there was no end to it. He was like a deep, unfathomable pool of water. Meng Qi was shocked. Yixing's attack did not stop at all. The killing intent in his eyes did not diminish. Instead, his strength increased. He used the 17th move to attack Meng Qi. The golden dragon fist collapsed the void, forming a black collapsed area. It carried a terrifying power as it blasted towards Meng Qi. Meng Qi's mind shook. He used the 8 arts of Flame Dragon. He controlled 2 flaming dragons to block Yixing. Boom! Boom! The 2 flaming dragon fists were destroyed. Yixing's fist strength was still terrifying. It shook Meng Qi and forced him to retreat. The 18th move. Yixing's fist changed. Its power increased. His strength was even more terrifying. He used the strongest move he could currently use. Meng-Chi still used the 8 arts of Flame Dragon to block. The 2 flaming dragons roared and surged out, colliding with the golden dragon fists. Boom! The 2 flaming dragon fists were instantly destroyed. The terrifying fist strength struck Meng-Chi's body. Meng-Chi's body was blown away, and he spurted out a mouthful of blood. The hearts of the spectating High Lords twitched. Meng-Chi was ranked second on the High Lords list. Yet, he was beaten to the point of spurting out blood by Yixing. This was too hard to believe. The High Lords were dumbfounded. Ah! Meng-Chi fell several hundred meters away. The flames around his body surged as he roared in anger. Little bastard, you dare to injure me. I'm going to turn you into ashes today. Turn you into ashes. Meng-Chi used the ultimate secret art of the 8 arts of Flame Dragon. The surrounding fire Yuan Qi turned into flaming dragons and drilled into his body. Soon, numerous flaming dragon heads appeared. There were a total of 8 dragon heads on either side of Meng-Chi's head. It seemed like Meng-Chi had 9 heads. The ultimate secret art of the 8 arts of Flame Dragon consumed a terrifying amount of energy each time it was used. Meng-Chi had to ignite his astral energy to support it. In this state, he could fight to a draw with the number 1 on the High Lords list. This was the ultimate battle strength of a half-step king. Yixing had seen the half-step beast king Dark Abyss Flood Dragon. Meng-Chi's current strength was extremely close to the Flood Dragons. Yixing wasn't surprised at all. Burning Blood Law. Yixing also used his final trump card. His strength once again rose. Chapter 705. Die! Meng-Chi roared and rushed toward Yixing with his 9 heads. Meng-Chi clawed out and the 8 dragon heads above him spat out flames, forming a terrifying flame dragon. It contained a terrifying destructive power and attacked Yixing. The higher the level of the bloodline burned, the stronger the power of the burning blood technique. The divine dragon blood essence was a powerful bloodline. After being activated by the burning blood technique, Yixing's strength increased by several times. Compared to Meng-Chi's ultimate secret skill of the flame dragon's 8 laws, the increase in strength was much greater. Boom! Yixing punched out and a golden dragon fist rushed out. The void in front of him collapsed instantly. In an instant, the golden dragon fist collided with the blazing flame dragon. In an instant, the earth shook, and the entire island shook. In the explosion, the flame dragon's body was covered in layers. Looking at the golden dragon fist rushing toward him, the madness in Meng-Chi's eyes turned into fear. Bang! The punch landed heavily on Meng-Chi's body. Meng-Chi's body exploded into a cloud of blood mist. He died instantly. Captain Meng-Chi. Some of the great Yuan dynasty's honorables exclaimed. Some flew into the sky and turned to flee. The rest of the honorables were only half a beat slower. They all flew into the sky and fled. Even Meng-Chi had died in Yixing's hands. The remaining honorables were nothing in front of Yixing. If Yixing started a massacre, they would all die. However, Yixing naturally wouldn't waste his energy on these supremacies. He immediately dispersed the burning blood technique. He had only used the burning blood technique once, so it didn't consume much of his divine dragon essence blood. Yixing swallowed an elixir and adjusted his breathing. He quickly left the island and headed toward the edge of the Sea of Abyss prison. The area he was in should be very far from the honorables of the Dark Star sect. Yixing would use the communication bead to contact the Dark Star sect's team every once in a while, but he could not reach them. For the rest of the journey, Yixing did not encounter any obstacles. News of him had definitely spread amongst the exalted lords of the Daryuan dynasty. However, even an expert like Meng Qi, who was ranked second on the Exalted Lord rankings, had died at Yixing's hands, so the others naturally didn't dare look for trouble with Yixing. That would be courting death. When he entered the Sea of Darkness prison, he'd been constantly searching for the green-haired dead spirit, so his journey was very slow. Now, when Yixing saw that he was unable to lure the green-haired dead spirit out, he directly flew towards the edge of the Sea of Darkness prison, and he merely used a little over a day to leave the Sea of Darkness prison. Yixing landed on the icy ground and heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He finally got out of this damned Sea of Black prison. After leaving the Sea of Black prison, the distance of the communication pearl was no longer affected, so Yixing immediately contacted the Black Puma King. According to the speed communication pearl, Yixing was more than 80,000 li away from the Black Puma King. In other words, after Yixing entered the Sea of Darkness prison and was chased by the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon for a period of time, then came out, he was more than 80,000 li away from where he entered the Sea of Darkness prison. On the other hand, the Dark Star Sex team did not search too far horizontally, and focused on searching vertically, so they didn't stray too far from where they entered the Sea of Darkness prison. Yixing wasn't 80,000 li away from them, but at least 50 to 60,000 li. Of course, they wouldn't be able to contact him in the Sea of Darkness prison. "I'll be right there. I'll come to your aid." The two of them spoke at the same time after confirming the distance and direction. When the speed communication pearls were connected, they could sense the distance and direction of the other party. Yixing flew towards the Black Puma King, and the Black Puma King also flew towards Yixing. Not long after Yixing left, a person stepped through the void and stopped at the spot where Yixing had been standing. This person looked very young, about 20 years old, and was wearing a black dragon robe. It was the crown prince of the Great Yuan dynasty, Meng Yuanqing. In the Sea of Darkness prison, although the supremacies of the Great Yuan dynasty knew that Yixing wasn't far from them, they didn't dare find trouble with Yixing ever since Meng Qi had died. However, they still paid attention to Yixing's whereabouts and had already sent people to leave the Sea of Darkness prison as quickly as possible to report the news to the monarchs in the vicinity. Among the monarchs of the Great Yuan dynasty, the crown prince, Meng Yuanqing, was the closest to this area and had rushed over immediately after receiving the news. Monarchs were very sensitive to the universe, so they quickly discovered Yixing's departure trajectory and chased after Yixing. Yixing was rushing to meet up with the Black Puma King, while Meng Yuanqing was rushing with all his strength to chase after Yixing. The two exerted different amounts of strength, so naturally, Meng Yuanqing was faster. Yixing had only flown 1,000 li when he keenly sensed a powerful aura chasing after him. Yixing opened his martial Dao heavenly eye and super brain to look behind him. Soon, he discovered Meng Tianqing's figure 100 li away. Meng Tianqing. As soon as Yixing saw Meng Tianqing, flames of anger burned in his eyes. His star fire seed was still with Meng Tianqing. If Yixing had the star fire seed, the corpse jade on him would be enough for him to cultivate to the 9th level of astral reaching realm. Unfortunately, I'm not his opponent now. Killing intent flickered in Yixing's eyes, but he hid it in his heart and continued flying towards the Black Puma King. Whoosh! The azure cloud wings flapped, and Yixing streaked across the sky like a beam of light, his speed suddenly exploding. Yixing used the wind momentum to the limit. Surging wind yuan qi gathered around his body as Yixing flew at full speed. His speed far surpassed astral reaching realm reverend lords. Only kings could compete with him. This kid sped up. His speed is actually this fast. 100 li away, Meng Tianqing locked onto Yixing's aura and was astonished. Yixing's explosive speed was actually not inferior to his, a one-star king. This truly shocked Meng Tianqing. This king doesn't believe that I can't catch up to a puny 6-star venerable like you. Meng Tianqing coldly snorted and sped up. In any case, the astral wind of a king was extremely dense, so Meng Tianxing could maintain his extreme speed for a long time. Yixing was only a 6-star venerable. Regardless of strength or quantity, his astral wind couldn't be compared to a 1-star king. Meng Tianxing was very sure that Yixing wouldn't be able to maintain his extreme speed for too long. After chasing Yixing for 10,000 li, Meng Tianxing thought to himself, "You should be exhausted soon." Yixing's speed didn't slow down as Meng Tianxing had expected. He still maintained his extreme speed, tearing through the sky like a beam of light. Soon, he had covered another 10,000 li. Behind him, Meng Tianxing's heart started to tremble again. Yixing was only a 6-star venerable, yet he could maintain his extreme speed for 20,000 li. It was truly unbelievable. What was even more unbelievable to Meng Tianxing was that even after flying for more than 30,000 miles, he was still more than 100 miles away from Yixing. He had not closed the gap at all. Yixing, on the other hand, was still as fast as a beam of light. He seemed to be full of vigor and didn't show the slightest sign of slowing down. Chapter 706. I don't believe that you can. Meng Tianxing muttered to himself. Just as he was about to make up his mind to chase Yixing to death, he felt a terrifying aura coming from afar. To be able to make me feel danger, this person is at least a 2-star king, or even stronger. Unfortunately, father is quite far away. Meng Tianxing stopped his pursuit. He glared at Yixing before turning around and leaving. Ahead, Yixing and the Black Tiger King quickly met up. Seeing that Yixing was fine, the Black Tiger King finally relaxed and asked, "Who was the king that chased after you?" Yixing said, "Meng Tianxing." The Black Tiger King squinted his eyes and looked in the direction Meng Tianxing left. "It's actually the great Meng Crown Prince. At least he escaped quickly. Meng Tai will be here soon. Let's retreat first." As soon as the Black Tiger King finished speaking, Yixing felt a dark aura enveloping him. It was the Black Tiger King using the Complete Darkness aura. The Complete Darkness aura covered their tracks. Even if the Supreme King Meng Tai came here, he wouldn't be able to find out where Yixing and the Black Tiger King left. In less than 2 hours, the Black Tiger King brought Yixing and the other kings of the Dark Star sect to gather. Yixing was the first to return. The rest of the High Lords were still in the Ocean of Darkness prison. I never thought that there would be a Dark Abyss Flood Dragon in the Ocean of Darkness prison. Moreover, it's a half-step beast king. I was chased by the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon and used all my strength to escape. However, I couldn't contact my teammates and could only choose to go to the edge of the Ocean of Darkness prison. At first, I was still able to lure out some green-furred monsters to kill. However, it seemed like all the green-furred monsters disappeared. I searched many places but couldn't lure out any more. Instead, I met the Great Yuan Dynasty's team. After a big battle with the Great Yuan Dynasty's High Lords, they were scared and didn't try to kill me again. I kept going out of the Ocean of Darkness prison before being chased by the Great Meng Crown Prince. Then, I met up with Brother Black Tiger and returned here together. Yixing recounted his experience in the Sea of Dark prison. However, he concealed the fact that he had injured the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon. This matter would involve the Burning Blood technique. Yixing's black hole astrology and dragonization were no longer unknown trump cards, but the Burning Blood technique was still there. He still had to reserve what he should. Yixing didn't even mention the Black Skull to the others. Once the free news spread, everyone who came out of the Sea of Black prison was suspected, causing panic. However, Yixing had already told the Black Leopard King about it on their way here. Only he and the Black Leopard King knew about it. As long as the King of Death's soul revealed a trace, they would find out who he was. If more people knew about it, the King of Death's spirit would pay more attention to it. If the King of Death's spirit wanted to hide it, it would be difficult to find him. Several days later, the sovereign lords of the Dark Star Church came out of the ocean of black hell. The 5th and 6th squads came out together, the 4th and 7th squads came out together, and the 3rd and 8th squads came out together. However, when the 2nd and 9th squads came out together, the Dark Star Church's martial practitioners were all shocked. Only Zhui Yupeng was left in the 2nd squad. None of the others came out. The other squads also lost members, but at most, they only lost 2 members. Some lost 1, and most of them didn't lose a single member. The 2nd squad was second only to the 1st squad in strength. However, other than Zhui Yupeng, they were all wiped out. This was truly shocking. Yixing and Black Biao King looked at each other and raised their eyebrows. Both of them were suspicious of Zhui Yupeng. In the Sea of Black Prison, there was a king of death soul's consciousness that was looking for someone to possess. Zhui Yupeng's team had suffered heavy losses. No matter how they looked at it, Zhui Yupeng was a major suspect. The two frowned slightly. If the king of death soul really possessed Zhui Yupeng, then it would be troublesome. If it was an ordinary high lord, they would be directly arrested and put on trial. With Black Biao King's status, as long as he gave a sufficient reason, it would be easy for him to put a high lord on trial. However, Zhui Yupeng was different. He was the Dark Star Church's young sect master, Shui Xinglong's son. Could he also be arrested and put on trial? Shui Xinglong couldn't put his son on trial just because he was suspicious. Therefore, just suspicion wasn't enough to put Zhui Yupeng on trial. There had to be evidence. Otherwise, if Zhui Yupeng insisted that he wasn't possessed, who would the Dark Star Church believe? Just because he suspected that his son was possessed by the King of Death's soul, he would execute his son. Or would he imprison his son for life? That's impossible. No father would treat his own son so lightly. Moreover, the Dark Star Church's sect master had high hopes for Zhui Yupeng. How could he destroy his son just because of a little suspicion? We have to focus on Zhui Yupeng and see if we can find evidence. Yixing and Black Biao King exchanged glances and understood each other's thoughts. Team 1 and Team 10 were the last to come out of the Sea of Darkness prison. Because Yixing was chased by the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon and his whereabouts were unknown, Team 1 and Team 10 had been searching for Yixing's whereabouts. In the process of searching for Yixing, they also used Wei Qingxian as bait to kill some green-furred undead spirits. Later, the green-furred undead spirits didn't come out. Wei Qingxian persisted in searching for Yixing for a period of time, but in the end, she left the Sea of Darkness prison without any results. Therefore, it was delayed until the end. Yixing. As soon as Team 1 came out, Wei Qingxian saw Yixing. She rushed over and looked at Yixing. "Are you okay?" Wei Qingxian had personally experienced how powerful the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon was. Moreover, the Dark Abyss Flood Dragon could control the water and move at lightning speed. It wasn't inferior to Yixing in the slightest. Wei Qingxian hadn't received any news about Yixing in the past 2 days, and her heart had been hanging in suspense. Now that she saw Yixing, she was finally relieved. Yixing spread out his hands and smiled. "Very good. My ability to escape is even stronger than my strength. That evil creature couldn't catch up to me. After chasing for a long distance, it didn't give up. However, I ran too far away and couldn't find a way back in the Sea of Darkness prison, so I left the Sea of Darkness prison through other landmarks. I was the first to come out." Wei Qingxian smiled. "I knew it. You wouldn't be taken advantage of so easily." After everyone had arrived, the Dark Star sect master collected a third of the corpse jades as sect resources. Then, he led everyone back to the Dark Star sect. Although the green-furred undead spirits weren't completely exterminated, they were all hiding. There was nothing they could do about it. In the end, the Dark Star sect master left 3 kings in the northern nether region to prevent the green-furred monsters from coming out and wreaking havoc. Chapter 707. After returning to the Dark Star sect, Shui Yupeng's mission was given to the Black Biao King. The Black Biao King's mission to Yixing was to cultivate wholeheartedly and become a king as soon as possible. Even though Yixing had handed over a third of the corpse jades to the Dark Star sect, there were still a lot of corpse jades left. It was more than enough for Yixing to cultivate to the 9th star Sovereign Lord realm. The problem was that the corpse jades were filled with dense death qi. Every time Yixing absorbed a bit of energy from the corpse jades, he would need a long time to use his life force to slowly dissolve the death qi in his body. If it were spirit-grade corpse jades, a king would be able to refine the death qi within. But profound-grade corpse jades were something even a king could do nothing about. Yixing could only rely on his own life force to slowly dissolve the death qi. This was much slower than constantly absorbing corpse jades, but it was still much faster than cultivating normally. However, as a result, Yixing spent most of his time leisurely. During this time, Yixing cultivated his archery, martial arts, and comprehended the power of heaven and earth. Sometimes, he would also go to the Dark Star sect's library to read. The library was an important place in the Dark Star sect. However, as the fiend star of the chaotic era, Yixing's status in the Dark Star sect also rose as his cultivation increased. He could enter and exit an important place like the library as he wished. Not only did the library have a large number of martial arts manuals, but there were even more cultivation notes left behind by the Dark Star sect's martial seniors. Yixing mainly read these notes. He absorbed the cultivation experiences of his predecessors to increase his own knowledge. Days like this quickly passed day after day. The days in the Star Continent were very peaceful. The green-furred undead spirit in the Sea of Black Prison didn't come out again. The Black Biao King kept an eye on Shui Yupeng, but Shui Yupeng was still the same as before. As for the others who came out of the Sea of Black Prison, they were also normal. Although the days were peaceful, Yixing's cultivation increased by leaps and bounds. Furthermore, he used his superbrain to scan the books, so his reading speed was very fast. In a few months, Yixing had read through all the books in the library. Half a year later, Yixing's attainments in archery made another breakthrough, reaching the 9 transformations of heart. The 9th layer of heart force was already his limit. Even though Zhang Xian had yet to achieve a breakthrough in his mastery of one with the bow, he had still managed to reach the pinnacle of the 2nd level. Yixing's cultivation base had also stabilized to peak level 6 astral reaching realm. As long as the death qi in his body was dissolved by the life force, he would be able to absorb the energy from the corpse jade again, allowing his cultivation base to break through to level 7 astral reaching realm and become a reverend. Not much time passed. 2 months later. On the 7th day of the 10th month, Yixing had broken through the 7th level of the astral reaching realm with the help of the profound grade 5 corpse jade, becoming a 7-star reverend. The 6th to 7th level of astral reaching realm was the breakthrough from mid-level to high-level astral reaching realm. Yixing's power had increased drastically. In addition to his attainments in archery, Yixing's strength was much stronger than when he had broken through to become a 6-star venerable in the Sea of Black Prison. Even if he didn't use the power of the divine dragon essence blood, it would be hard for him to find a worthy opponent under the king realm. After becoming a 7-star reverend, I should be able to escape from a king realm expert, right? Yixing thought to himself. Yixing's breakthrough to 7-star reverend caused his star power to surge. Black Biao King immediately rushed over. Wei Qingxian had broken through to the 7th level of astral reaching realm half a year ago, and Yixing had also become a 7-star reverend. The cultivation speed of these 2 monstrous geniuses was extremely fast. Black Biao King was so happy that he couldn't stop smiling. Brother Black Biao, could you please find a king realm expert to test me? Let's see if I can escape from a king realm expert. Yixing said. Alright, I'll find King Lanqin. Black Biao King nodded and took out a communication pearl, immediately notifying King Lanqin. In the mountains behind the left star emissary's mansion, Yixing was about 30 li away from the mansion, standing in the void. In front of him, 10 li away, King Lanqin was also standing in the void. As for Black Biao King and Wei Qingxian, they were in the air above the mansion, opening their martial Dao heavenly eyes and watching Yixing and King Lanqin. Black Biao King had given Yixing a mission, which was to return to the mansion under King Lanqin's obstruction. If Yixing could break through King Lanqin's blockade, then Yixing would be able to escape even if he encountered a King Realm expert. If Yixing couldn't return, then he would have to continue cultivating in the Dark Star sect. Only when he had the power to protect himself in front of a King Realm expert could he leave. King Lanqin looked at Yixing in front of her and sighed inwardly. In a few short years, she had personally witnessed the growth of Yixing and Wei Qingxian, these two monstrous geniuses. And now, Yixing had actually reached the point where he could face off against a one-star King Realm expert like her. King Lanqin, please make your move. Yixing shouted from afar. All right. King Lanqin collected her thoughts and shouted. A terrifying aura instantly erupted, suppressing the surroundings with her King Realm aura. King Lanqin made a grabbing motion with her hand. Instantly, the water yuan qi in the air gathered, forming a giant astral water hand that grabbed at Yixing. This astral water hand was more than 30 meters long, like a small mountain. It grabbed Yixing's head. To Yixing, it seemed to blot out the sun. 9 Heavens Godly Wander Art. Yixing's figure flickered as he dodged the astral water hand's attack. His force of wind had already reached the peak of the mid-level king realm of the union of heaven and man. Moreover, he had cultivated the mid-grade mystic level technique of the 9 Heavens astral wander to the perfection realm. His speed was shocking. The giant astral water hand missed, and Yixing's body drew an arc in the air like a ray of light. He wanted to go around King Lanqin and reach the left emissary's residence. At the same time, King Lanqin's figure moved like lightning. A mid-grade mystic weapon appeared in her hand, and she swung it. An azure water sword aura shot out in an instant. No matter how fast Yixing was, he couldn't outrun King Lanqin's attack. He leaped into the air and dodged again. Swish! 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 The moment King Lanqin attacked, her moves flowed like water. She swung her sword again and again, her water sword aura slicing the void into pieces. Yixing couldn't dodge the astral water sword and return to the left emissary's residence. He had a hard time dodging the astral water sword. Swish! 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 Yixing used 3 celestial bodies at the same time. He drew the raven bow into a full moon. Swish! An arrow of starlight shot out. There were no transformations, only pure power. When the starlight arrow hit the water ripple sword aura, it shattered it into pieces. Swish! 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 Yixing's figure flickered as he shot out arrow after arrow of starlight, counterattacking King Lanqin. King Lanqin's heart shook. Yixing's attack made her, a 1-star king realm, feel threatened. Swish! A beam of starlight shot out of King Lanqin's forehead. She had also used her celestial body, and it was a top-grade water-type one. After using her celestial body, King Lanqin's strength increased greatly. The astral water sword she swung out was even more terrifying. The arrows of starlight were destroyed by the astral water sword. Chapter 708. King Lanqin slashed out again and again. Sometimes, the sword light was like waves, sometimes like ripples, and sometimes like flowing water. Every strike contained extremely powerful water yuan qi. It was on a completely different level from the attacks of sovereigns. Sovereigns used their own strength to draw in all kinds of yuan qi between heaven and earth. As for kings, they could not only draw in the yuan qi of heaven and earth, but also refine it for their own use. With the same move, sovereigns could only draw in a bit of the yuan qi. Kings could draw in the yuan qi of heaven and earth and also unleash the yuan qi within their bodies. Naturally, they were much stronger. With Yi Xing's current strength, he could defeat any half-step kings without dragon forming. However, he was in a difficult position before King Lanqin. He was not her match at all. Wherever the sword light passed, Yi Xing's starlight arrows, no matter how many transformations they contained, were all destroyed. Yi Xing could only retreat pathetically, not to mention reaching the left emissary's residence. If not for Yi Xing's movement technique being fast enough, King Lanqin would have already injured him. Kings are indeed extraordinary. With King Lanqin's strength, I'm afraid I won't be able to break through her blockade even if I transform into dragon form. I'll only have a chance if I use dragon race martial arts. Yi Xing thought to himself. However, I still have a powerful archery technique that I haven't used yet. Let's test the power of the Dark Wind Fire Arrow Incantation. Dark Wind Fire Arrow Incantation. Yi Xing had learned this archery technique from the Black Tortoise Jade Wall. As he had the trump card of transforming into a dragon, Yi Xing would always transform into a dragon whenever he encountered an enemy he couldn't deal with. He had never used this archery technique before. However, this archery technique contained the power of darkness, wind, and fire. It was definitely powerful. His attainments in archery had reached Heart's 9 transformations and the second level of 1 with the bow. The 3 powers had also reached the mid-step king level of 1 with the world. It was enough for him to unleash the power of this archery technique. Whoosh! 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 Yi Xing pulled open the black bow. The 3 powers of heaven and earth circulated, and the starlight arrow instantly contained 3 different kinds of yuan qi of heaven and earth. The 3 types of heaven and earth yuan qi gathered together due to the dark wind fire arrow art, causing the power of the starlight arrow to multiply. In addition to his attainments in the 9 transformations of the heart and the power of the second level of the 1 with the bow, the power of the arrow of starlight had reached an extremely powerful level. Whoosh! The dark wind fire arrow shot out. The black arrow of starlight burned with flames as it constantly spun. With a sharp gust of wind, it shot toward King Lanqin with unstoppable force. Bang 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 bang, wherever the arrow light passed, the astral swords were destroyed. Queen Lanqin's heart shuddered as she became slightly shocked. The power of the arrow had actually made her slightly fearful. It was enough to threaten her life. All rivers returned to the sea. Empress Lanqin let out a soft cry and used her ultimate move. The treasured sword in her hand swung out countless times in an instant. Every sword light gathered together and turned into a sea of sword light, with the feeling of waves crashing. The dark wind fire arrow instantly shot into the sea of sword light and collided with countless sword lights. It pierced a fist-sized hole in the sea of sword light. After being blocked by all rivers returned to the sea, the dark wind fire arrow's power was greatly reduced. However, Queen Lanqin had used up a lot of energy to forcefully block it with her sword. She swung her sword back to block the dark wind fire arrow, but her body shook slightly and she couldn't help but take a step back. This arrow had forced a king to retreat. Just as Queen Lanqin's sword clashed with the dark wind fire arrow, Yi Xing had already used the 9 heavens astral wander art. He rapidly moved in an arc, circling around Queen Lanqin and heading for the left emissary's residence. Queen Lanqin wanted to block with her sword, but the dark wind fire arrow forced her back a step, slowing her attack by half a beat. By the time she drew her sword, Yi Xing had already flashed past her body. Whoosh! Yi Xing shot out another arrow. This time, it wasn't the dark wind fire arrow, but a normal starlight arrow. After blocking Queen Lanqing's attack for a moment, Yixing didn't slow down at all as he rushed for the residence. Finally, Yixing arrived safely in the air above the residence, unharmed. The Lanqing Emperor arrived right behind him. She stared at Yixing in surprise and said, "That arrow just now was really powerful. If you use 2 of those archery moves in a row, I might not be able to stop you. I might even be injured and defeated." Yixing said, "That arrow used up too much energy. I can't use it continuously. However, I still have dragon form as a trump card. If I were to meet a king of the Yuan dynasty in the wilderness, I might not lose in a direct battle." Queen Lanqing nodded. Although she hadn't seen Yixing's dragon form with her own eyes, she had heard that Yixing had beaten up Zhui Yupeng at the Cultivation Saint Pond. It was because Yixing had used dragon form that he had defeated Zhui Yupeng. Yixing looked at Black Tiger King and said excitedly, "Now, I can go out." Black Tiger King was full of smiles. Yixing's growth was getting closer and closer to his expectations. He was already a king now. When Yixing became a king, Black Tiger King estimated that Yixing's strength wouldn't be inferior to his own. At that time, the Dark Star sect would have 2 mid-step kings, and they would be able to fight the Yuan dynasty head-on. If Yixing became a 2-star or 3-star king, then overthrowing the Yuan dynasty would only be a matter of time. Black Tiger King nodded. "All right, but be careful. Keep in touch and let me know your location. If you're in danger, I'll immediately rush over to save you. I'll go to the Dark Star Pagoda and consolidate my Dark Star Xian body. After that, I'll go out and explore." Yixing looked at Wei Qingxian and said, "Qingxian, do you want to travel the world together?" Wei Qingxian thought for a while and said, "I'll break through to 8th-star Venerable Lord in at most a month. I'll cultivate in peace during this time. After I become an 8th-star Venerable Lord, I'll come find you." The two looked at each other and smiled. Yixing said, "All right, I'll wait for you." The next day, Yixing headed to the Dark Star Pagoda and cultivated, consolidating his Dark Star Xian body to the limit of small success. After exiting the Dark Star Pagoda, Yixing headed to the teleportation hall, preparing to leave. Yixing already knew the location of the Dark Star sect. It was located on an island in the sea east of the East Divine Continent. There were countless islands in the sea, and this was also the reason why the Yuan dynasty had never been able to find the Dark Star sect's location. The outer layer of the island had been completely sealed by the sect's ancestors. It couldn't be seen from the outside, and no one could enter or leave. To leave the Dark Star sect, one had to go through the teleportation hole. Yixing. Before Yixing could enter the teleportation hall, he was stopped outside. Yixing looked at Zhui Yupeng with surprise in his eyes. After returning from the Sea of Dark prison, Yixing and Black Tiger King had always thought that Zhui Yupeng was the most likely person to be possessed by the Death Spirit King. However, Zhui Yupeng didn't reveal any flaws. Everything was the same as before. Chapter 709. Yixing did not expect that Zhui Yupeng would take the initiative to find him. "What's the matter?" Yixing looked at Zhui Yupeng indifferently. Zhui Yupeng looked at Yixing with a fierce look in his eyes. "Let's settle the score between us. Do you think I'll let go of what happened in the cultivation sacred pool?" Yixing chuckled. "Are you looking for a beating?" Although Yida's expression was calm, he was carefully analyzing Zhui Yupeng's words to see if there were any flaws in his words. Unfortunately, Yixing did not feel that Zhui Yupeng was any different from before. Zhui Yupeng snorted, "Yixing, do you really think no one can defeat you? I'm now a 9th-star Venerable Lord, and my strength is incomparable to before. I can suppress you in a matter of minutes. I waited for you to break through to the 7th-star Venerable Lord realm before fighting you to let you know that I won't take advantage of you." In the cultivation sacred pool, Yixing was a 5th-star venerable while Zhui Yupeng was a 7th-star venerable lord. Now, Yixing was a 7th-star venerable lord while Zhui Yupeng was a 9th-star venerable lord. The difference in cultivation between the two was still 2 realms. Won't take advantage of me? Yixing chuckled. If you really won't take advantage of me, it won't be too late to fight me when our cultivation reaches the same realm. Zhui Yupeng was stunned, then he said angrily, aren't you known as the Fiend Star of Troubled Times? If we fight at the same realm, you won't be the Fiend Star of Troubled Times. Cut the crap, do you dare accept my challenge? Yixing narrowed his eyes and looked at Zhui Yupeng for a while. Who says I don't dare? If you're looking for trouble, I'll fulfill your wish. Yixing did not feel that there was anything wrong with Zhui Yupeng's words. He wanted to see if Zhui Yupeng was different from before. The two soon arrived at a wasteland. One was the Fiend Star of Troubled Times, and the other was the young hierarch. The two of them were about to fight. When the nearby warriors saw this, they were naturally excited and stood in the distance to watch. Before he even made a move, Yixing's body was already in dragon form. At the same time, he used the black hole astral form and the fire astral form. Zhui Yupeng also used the thunder and lightning astral aspect. Dazzling lightning flashed. The two of them had fought before, so they did not use any probing attacks. The moment they made their move, they brought out their peak strength. With the treasured spear in his hand, Zhui Yupeng's aura soared. He shouted, "Loose for me!" A spear thrust out, accompanied by a purple lightning. The higher Yixing's cultivation was, the stronger his dragon form would be. Now that he was a 7-star High Lord, he was no weaker than a 1-star king after dragon form. He threw a punch at Zhui Yupeng's spear. Boom! The tip of the spear collided with the golden dragon fist, causing sparks to fly. Yixing did not even take half a step back, but Zhui Yupeng's body shook and retreated a dozen steps. Although Zhui Yupeng's strength was strong, in Yixing's eyes, he was not much different from the dark abyss flood dragon he had met in the ocean of dark prison. At most, he was at the limit of half-step king. He was still a little bit away from a true king. On the other hand, Yixing's dragon form was a strength that could contend against a 1-star king. Zhui Yupeng naturally could not block it. Yixing took a large step forward and punched out with his golden dragon fist, attacking Zhui Yupeng repeatedly. Dang 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 dang. Every time the purple lightning mystic spear and dragon fist collided, a crisp sound would erupt, causing Zhui Yupeng to retreat again and again. Extreme purple flash. Zhui Yupeng retreated several li with a furious expression. He roared and used the ultimate move he had comprehended. With a flash of purple lightning and a thunderous boom, the terrifying spear technique had already arrived in front of Yixing. Yixing sneered. With a flash of golden light, his body retreated explosively and his dragon claw slapped out. He did not collide with the opponent's attack head-on, but instead deflected it. However, Zhui Yupeng's spear was extremely fast and powerful, so it was not so easy to deflect it. It continued to stab toward Yixing's chest. Yixing dodged the spear's sharpest moment and punched out with his other hand. Bang! With a loud explosion, the purple lightning mystic spear was bent by Yixing's punch. The purple lightning mystic spear was bent straight and fiercely flicked, causing Zhui Yupeng's body to shoot backward. Boom! With a flash of golden light, Yixing's figure rushed forward and instantly caught up, punching Zhui Yupeng's chest. Zhui Yupeng was hit and immediately vomited blood as he was sent flying 1,000 meters away. In the distance, the spectating martial artists all sucked in a breath of cold air. The dragon scales on Yixing's body disappeared and he returned to his human form. He retracted his fist with a look of surprise on his face. When he sent Zhui Yupeng flying with his fist, he felt a suction force suddenly appear in Zhui Yupeng's body, sucking away some of his strength. Although the process was brief, Yixing was still keenly aware of it. If there was a difference between this and Zhui Yupeng, then this did not happen the last time Yixing fought with Shui Yupeng. This is strange. It can be considered an anomaly on Shui Yupeng's part. However, only I know of this. Even if I tell others, no one will believe me. Yixing thought to himself. He took out a speed communication bead and reported this matter to the Black Puma King. I understand. I will increase the surveillance on him. If he wants to fight with you at this time, he probably has some ulterior motive. Do you want to stay here for a while? The Black Puma King sent a message. It's fine. I will pay attention, Yixing replied. If Shui Yupeng had really been possessed by the Death Spirit King, then it would be impossible to expose him in a short period of time. How could Yixing keep waiting? Under the gazes of numerous martial artists, Yixing arrived at the teleportation hole. Through the teleportation array, he left the Dark Star sect and arrived at a certain place in the East Divine Continent. Yixing first changed his clothes. His old clothes were burned to ashes with origin chi flames. Then he found a lake to take a bath. He cleaned his body with origin chi flames to prevent Shui Yupeng from leaving any marks on his body during the battle. After doing all this, Yixing used the momentum of darkness to cover his tracks and flew towards the Azure Cloud Mountain Range. Yixing's first stop was the Azure Cloud Mountain Range, the Dark Canyon. The Black Biao King had comprehended the momentum of darkness to perfection in the Dark Canyon. Yixing's momentum of darkness was only a step away from perfection. He wanted to complete this last step in the Dark Canyon. Only by comprehending the momentum of heaven and earth to perfection would one have a chance of comprehending the true meaning of Tao. The earlier one reached perfection, the greater the chance of comprehending the true meaning of Tao. Yixing arrived at the Dark Canyon. He entered the canyon and sat down cross-legged. He sensed the aura of darkness around him and comprehended the momentum of darkness. The aura of darkness enveloped Yixing. Even if someone came to the Dark Canyon, they wouldn't be able to see or sense his existence. At the same time, in the Dark Star sect, Shui Yupeng had a faintly discernible mass of black energy in his hand. He had a cold smile on his face. Yixing, oh Yixing. You must have thought that I left some mark on your body. After leaving the Dark Star sect, you would burn your clothes and wash your entire body. But that's useless. I've absorbed a little of the death energy in your body. Through this little bit of death energy, I can sense the location of the death energy in your body. Haha, how could this king not know where you are? Chapter 710. Azure Cloud Mountain Range, Dark Canyon. Yixing calmed his mind and tried to comprehend the darkness momentum. His sense of touch extended, and it was extremely mysterious. Suddenly, Yixing's mind jolted and he opened his eyes. He had sensed several powerful auras. To be able to make him feel powerful, these auras were at least astral sea realm kings. How could there be kings in the Azure Cloud Mountain Range? Moreover, there were several of them. It was truly strange. Yixing instantly thought of himself. Could it be that they're here for me? How do they know my location? In this dark canyon, even if there were kings nearby, as long as they didn't open their martial Tao heavenly eye, they wouldn't be able to discover Yixing's existence. It would be hard to explain why these kings had come for him, unless they knew his location. After a few breaths of time, Yixing was sure that these kings had indeed come for him. This was because these kings' auras were getting clearer and clearer. They should be heading straight for Yixing's location. Apart from Brother Black Tiger, no one knows my location. Why are these kings coming for me? Could it be that Shui Yupeng really did something to my body and I didn't wash it off? Yixing was puzzled. He immediately covered his body with the darkness aura and flew away from the dark canyon. He flew in a different direction, increasing the distance between him and the king's auras. However, Yixing discovered that the king's auras were getting closer and closer. They didn't go to the dark canyon at all. Instead, they changed directions and headed straight for Yixing. At this moment, Yixing was extremely sure that these kings had not only come for him, but they could also pinpoint his location. Even the darkness aura couldn't hide his whereabouts. Yixing immediately crushed a warning talisman. When the warning talisman was crushed, a warning formation that the Black Biao King carried with him would shatter as well. This meant that Yixing was in danger. The Black Biao King would know Yixing's location through the speed communication pearl, and would use the teleportation formation of the Dark Star Sect to quickly reach where Yixing was. In the Dark Star Sect, the Black Biao King had been secretly monitoring Zhui Yupeng. However, when Zhui Yupeng returned to the Zhuo family manor, he entered an underground secret room and disappeared from the Black Biao King's senses. It was as if Zhui Yupeng knew that the Black Biao King was monitoring him, so he intentionally shook him off. Back then, the Black Biao King had his suspicions. He felt that there must be a reason why Zhui Yupeng had fought Yixing before he left the Dark Star Sect. After Yixing left the Dark Star Sect, he might be in danger. Therefore, he had been paying attention to the warning formation on his body. Sure enough, as the Black Biao King expected, after a short period of over an hour, the Black Biao King received Yixing's request for help. The Black Biao King immediately sent a voice transmission to the Dark Star Sect's Master and the Sovereign Sect's Master, and then he rushed to the teleportation hall at the first possible moment. He used the speed communication pearl to confirm Yixing's location, and then used the teleportation formation to teleport towards the Ascension Mountain range. However, because it wasn't a fixed-point teleportation between teleportation formations, one-way teleportation would cause distance to occur. After teleporting, one wouldn't appear at a fixed location, and would appear in an area instead. So, the Black Biao King couldn't teleport directly to Yixing's side. The Black Biao King appeared in the Ascension Mountain range, and it was over 10,000 kilometers away from Yixing. At such a close distance, the speed communication pearl could already communicate directly. Yixing. How are you? The Black Biao King sent a message to Yixing. As soon as the Black Biao King arrived at the Ascension Mountain range, he sensed the auras of a few other kings, and one of them was especially familiar. It was the Deyuan Supreme King, Meng Tai. It's the Deyuan dynasty. I don't know how they know my location, but it should be Zhui Yupeng's doing. They have a high-grade profound-grade flying ship, and they're only a few hundred kilometers away from me. They're about to catch up to me. Yixing's voice sounded out from the Black Biao King's speed communication pearl. Only a few hundred kilometers away. The Black Biao King's eyes instantly turned red with anxiety. He ignited his astral energy and broke through the limits of his speed as he flew over. Over 5,000 kilometers away, Yixing similarly broke through the limits of his speed as he flew at extreme speeds. However, the flying ship behind him was truly too fast. It was a high-grade profound-grade flying ship that was driven by high-grade star crystals and controlled by a king. It could be considered as the fastest speed on the star continent, and it was even faster than Yixing flying at full speed. With every blink of an eye, the distance between the two parties would close by dozens of kilometers. The distance of a few hundred kilometers would not last for more than 10 blinks of an eye. The Black Biao King was still 5,000 kilometers away, and there was no way he could catch up. On the flying ship, there were a total of 5 kings, including the damning Supreme King. If they caught up, Yixing would not have the strength to resist at all. This could be said to be the most dangerous moment since Yixing had returned to the Star Continent. There was no way he could escape, and there was no way he could defeat them. This was a situation of certain death. Unless, a thought flashed through Yixing's mind as he thought of the great space-breaching talisman he had obtained in the Stellar Hall. Only the great space-breaching talisman could save his life. However, once the great space-breaching talisman was used, it would tear apart the space around the star continent and reach another star continent. Once he reached another star continent, it would be almost impossible for him to return to the star continent. Yixing still had many things to do in the star continent, and he was unwilling to leave just like that. After a few breaths, the high mystic-class flying ship behind them was even closer to Yixing. Yixing could already see the kings on the flying ship clearly. Other than the Supreme King Meng Tai, there was also the two-star King Meng Tong and the Diyuan Crown Prince Meng Yuanqing. The other two were the two-star King and the three-star King respectively. Seems like I'm really at my wit's end. Apart from using the Great Space-Breaching Talisman, there's no other way. But I'm definitely not willing to leave the star continent just like that. The Diyuan dynasty has to pay the price. I want to take back what belongs to me. Yixing's eyes were burning with flames of anger. He stopped running. He turned around and stood proudly in the void, looking at the flying ship that was approaching him rapidly. Cowards of the Diyuan dynasty, do you still have the guts to make a bet with me? Yixing shouted at the 5 kings on the flying ship. The flying ship stopped in the sky in front of Yixing. The 5 kings were excited, but there was also a hint of anger in their eyes. The Diyuan dynasty's demon star was right in front of them, and they could exterminate him at any time. Of course, the 5 kings were excited. However, Yixing, a mere 7-star supremacy, had dared to shout at the 5 kings and call them cowards. Of course, they were furious when they heard this. The Supreme King, Meng Tai, stood at the bow of the ship and looked down at Yixing. Yixing, you are about to die, yet you still dare to be so stubborn. I know that He Biao is rushing here. I can kill you before he arrives, but I won't. I want him to watch you die as soon as he arrives. I want him to feel the pain of having his hopes shattered before his eyes. Chapter 7:13. Yixing, he. Sorrow surged onto the Black Tiger King's face, and he was unable to speak about Yixing's death. When all the other kings saw the Black Tiger King's expression, they instantly understood that Yixing had probably been killed by the Supreme King, Meng Tai, and they revealed shocked expressions. The Black Tiger King quickly restrained his expression, and his gaze was like a bolt of lightning as he looked at the Dark Star Sect's master and shouted. Where's Shui Yupeng? The Dark Star Sect's master was stunned. Even though the Black Tiger King's strength had surpassed him since a long time ago, the Black Tiger King had never spoken to him in such a tone. When the Black Tiger King saw that the Dark Star Sect's master didn't answer him, he asked with a grim voice. Where's Shui Yupeng? The Dark Star Sect's master looked vigilantly at the Black Tiger King and said, Why are you looking for Yupeng? The Sovereign Sect's master, King Xiao Mu, walked forward and said, Black Tiger, what happened? Speak properly. The Black Tiger King said, Shui Yupeng is the true culprit behind Yixing's death. It was he who exposed Yixing's location to the Daryuan dynasty. The Dark Star Sect's master was surprised, and he said loudly, That's impossible. Even though Yupeng didn't get along well with Yixing, it's absolutely impossible for him to collude with the Daryuan dynasty. The Black Tiger King said, Senior brother, I'm afraid the current Shui Yupeng isn't your son anymore. The expressions of everyone transformed into astonishment. The Black Tiger King's words caused them to be extremely shocked. If Shui Yupeng wasn't the Shui Yupeng of the past, then what was he? The Dark Star Sect's master thought extremely highly of Shui Yupeng, and he was furious when he heard this. He said, Junior brother, I know it's very difficult for you to get angry because of Yixing's death, but what nonsense are you speaking? King Xiaomu said, Black Tiger, what do you mean by that? Yupeng is Star Dragon's only son. By now, the Black Biao King was sure that Shui Yupeng was the one who had been possessed by the Death Spirit King. Yixing once encountered the spirit body of the King of Death's soul in the Sea of Dark Prison. Since the King of Death's soul failed to possess Yixing, he would definitely choose to possess someone else. Shui Yupeng's team was completely annihilated, and Shui Yupeng's natural talent far surpassed the others, making him an extremely good target for possession. After returning from the Sea of Dark prison, Yi Xing and I suspected that Shui Yupeng had already been possessed by the King of Death's soul. The sect leader of the Dark Star sect became agitated and shouted, "Impossible! How could my son be possessed? That's impossible!" The kings all looked at the Black Biao King with strange expressions. Being possessed meant that he was dead, and his body had been taken over by his enemy. Shui Yupeng was the young sect leader of the Dark Star sect. Who would believe that Shui Yupeng had been possessed? The Black Biao King said, "Yi Xing knew that you wouldn't believe this, so he only told me about it. Ever since he returned to the Dark Star sect in the Sea of Dark prison, I've been paying attention to Shui Yupeng, and he didn't reveal any flaws. Until this time, when Yi Xing left the Dark Star sect, Shui Yupeng took the initiative to challenge Yi Xing, and the two fought. He knew that his strength was not as good as Yi Xing's, and he would definitely lose if he fought Yi Xing. Yet, he still wanted to fight Yi Xing. He must have done something to Yi Xing's body during the battle, and that's how he knew about Yi Xing's whereabouts. Otherwise, how could the Great Yuan dynasty's people know about Yi Xing's specific location? Although the Black Biao King's words were suspicious of Shui Yupeng, the sect leader of the Dark Star sect didn't believe that his son had been possessed. The sect leader of the Dark Star sect said, "That's only your suspicion. You don't have any proof. It's impossible for Yupeng to have been possessed." The Black Biao King said, "Senior brother, do you know that if Shui Yupeng has been possessed, then the current Shui Yupeng is no longer your son, but the enemy who killed your son? Whether or not he has been possessed, let him come out and face us. This time, I must make him reveal his true self." King Xiaomu said, "The Black Biao King's words aren't without reason. Star Dragon, let Yupeng come out and face everyone. If he hasn't been possessed, he's still the young sect leader. If he really has been possessed, can you tolerate the enemy who possessed your son's body?" King Xiaomu was an elder of the Zhuo clan, and the previous sect leader. His words naturally carried more weight than the Black Biao King's, and the sect leader of the Dark Star sect would listen to him. After hesitating for a moment, the sect leader of the Dark Star sect took out the speed communication pearl. Just like how Yi Xing and the Black Biao King's speed communication pearl were connected, and the Black Biao King could determine Yi Xing's location from thousands of miles away, the sect leader of the Dark Star sect and his son, Shui Yupeng, could do the same. In the next moment, the sect leader of the Dark Star sect's expression changed. Shui Yupeng's speed communication pearl had actually been cut off from his own. He couldn't sense Shui Yupeng's location at all. The sect leader of the Dark Star sect said, he should have sealed the speed communication pearl. I can't contact him." All the king's expressions changed. Why would the speed communication pearl be sealed for no reason? This was a big point of suspicion. Just now, they didn't really believe that Shui Yupeng had been possessed, but now, they had a lot of doubts in their hearts. The sect leader of the Dark Star sect said, "He's still in the sect. Let's go back. We'll be able to find him once we go back." The Black Biao King waved his hand and said, "He harmed Yi Xing. He knows that he can no longer hide his identity, so he must have already escaped. If he tells the Dark Star sect's location to the Great Yuan dynasty, the Dark Star sect will be in danger." Although the Dark Star sect's headquarters was covered in layers of formations, and even 4-star kings would lose their lives if they barged in, they only had about 2,000 years of accumulation. On the other hand, the Great Yuan dynasty had tens of thousands of years of accumulation. In terms of accumulation, the Great Yuan dynasty was much more profound. If they knew the location of the Dark Star sect's headquarters, the Great Yuan dynasty might be able to take down the Dark Star sect with some of their resources. At this moment, it was no longer a matter of whether Shui Yupeng had been possessed or not, but the Dark Star sect's foundation. The severity of the matter was more than 10 times greater. all the king's expressions changed. Xiao Mu King said, "Return." When the kings returned to the Dark Star sect, Shui Yupeng's figure was nowhere to be seen. Moreover, in the secret underground room of Shui Yupeng's residence, 2 human skin skeletons were found. One was the Zhuo family's half-step king, and the other was the 5-star venerable Hashimanju. It seemed like the two had not been sucked dry for long. Shui Yupeng had been possessed by the Death Soul King. There was no doubt that this was an irrefutable fact. The Dark Star sect immediately sealed off the entire island and conducted a comprehensive search. However, there was no sign of Shui Yupeng. He had already left the Dark Star sect. Shui Yupeng's possession was a huge threat to the safety of the Dark Star sect. The Dark Star sect was filled with worry. However, after the Black Tiger King returned to the Dark Star sect, his mood became better. Yixing and I left a trace of mental energy in each other's bodies. We can sense each other's life and death. I am sure that Yixing is not dead, but I can't sense his location. This is really strange. Could it be that he is no longer in the space of the Star Continent? From Wei Qingxian, the Black Tiger King knew that Yixing was not dead. The anger in his heart that had nowhere to vent was finally extinguished. The Black Tiger King believed that Yixing, as the demon star of the Great Yuan dynasty, would return one day as long as he was not dead. Chapter 7:14. When the space-breaching talisman shattered the space, Yixing was hit by the Supreme King Meng Tai's saber aura. The saber aura entered his body and he was severely injured. Soon, he fell unconscious. After being unconscious for a long time, Yixing slowly woke up. Yixing found himself lying on a hard wooden bed. When he moved his body slightly, a sharp pain came from his back and right shoulder, making it difficult for Yixing to move. He was injured, seriously injured. Yixing even felt that he could not circulate the astral energy in his body. His internal organs and meridians were all damaged to varying degrees. Yixing instantly thought of the Supreme King Meng Tai's saber. Fortunately, he had activated the Great Space-Breaching Talisman in time. If he had been a split second slower, this saber would have sliced his body into 2 and killed him instantly. Now, Yixing had returned to his human form. The divine dragon blood essence in his body had been burned. He could no longer transform into a dragon. His body was very weak and he felt powerless. Even raising his hand was difficult. This was definitely the most serious injury he had ever suffered in his life. If it wasn't for the fact that his Dark Star Xian body had reached the limit of small success and his vitality was extremely strong, almost comparable to that of a king, this injury would have been fatal. The vitality in his body would have slowly been destroyed, and he would have died in the end. However, Yixing's vitality was now stronger than the injuries he had suffered. As time passed, his vitality would become stronger and his body would gradually recover. It was just that it would take a long time. Although my injury is serious, it is not important. As long as I have time, I will completely recover. Moreover, I have the Starfire Seed and can refine the Death Aura in the Corpse Jade. This will allow my cultivation to break through and become an 8-star supremacy or even a 9-star supremacy. The important thing is which star continent I am in and whether I can return to the star continent. There are too many things I care about there. Yixing thought to himself. He turned his head slightly and looked around the room. It was a very simple room. In addition to the wooden bed, there was a small wooden cabinet, a wooden table, and a wooden chair. I can't fall on someone's bed after breaking through the void. It seems that someone saved me. When he comes, I will ask him where I am. As Yixing was thinking, footsteps came from outside the room. After a few breaths, the door opened with a creak. A gray-robed elder with a snow-white beard walked in. "Oh, young master, you are awake." The gray-robed elder entered the room and smiled when he saw Yixing. "Uncle, thank you for saving my life. How many days have I been unconscious?" Yixing knew that he must have been unconscious for a long time. Young master," the gray-robed elder. "Young master, you have been unconscious for a long time. It has been 5 days since my young master saved you from the back mountain. As for how long you have been unconscious, I don't know." Yixing was surprised that he had been unconscious for such a long time. It seemed that he was seriously injured this time. Yixing looked at the gray-robed elder carefully. Although he was seriously injured, his eyesight was still there. He could see that the gray-robed elder was a 9-star supremacy. A 9-star supremacy was just a servant. Then, he must be from a big family. However, the decor of this room was too plain. It looked like a farmhouse, not a room of a large family. Yixing said, "Thank you for saving my life. Is your young master not here?" The gray-robed elder came to the bedside and said, "Young master is seriously injured. My young master went to buy medicine for you." Yixing smiled in his heart. His injuries could not be cured by ordinary medicinal herbs. The reason he could wake up was all because of his own recovery ability. If he wanted to heal his injuries quickly, he would probably need a level 5 medicinal pill. Yixing asked, "Uncle, how should I address your young master? Where is this place?" "This is the Gu family. My young master is." The gray-robed elder hesitated and said, "My young master is the Gu family's young master, Gu Qingqin." Gu family, Gu Qingqin. Yixing remembered the name of the person who saved him. However, he wanted to know more than that. Yixing continued asking, "Uncle, where is this area?" The gray-robed elder looked at Yixing in confusion and said, "Young master, you were injured in the back mountain of the Gu family. Don't you know the Gu family of Evergreen City?" Yixing smiled awkwardly and said, "I really don't know. When I was injured, I was teleported by a force and then fell unconscious. I have never heard of the Evergreen City." The gray-robed elder said, "I see. Although the Gu family is a big family in Evergreen City, it is nothing in the entire Yuezhou. Young master, do you know the star-plucking palace in Yuezhou?" Yixing shook his head, "I don't know." The gray-robed elder was surprised and said, "You don't even know the star-plucking palace? Are you not from the Star Elephant Dynasty?" Star Elephant Dynasty. Yixing's heart skipped a beat. He knew that there was a Star Elephant Palace in the Starry Crescent Land. Was this a coincidence? Or was he in the Starry Crescent Land? Yixing shook his head and said, "I know of the Star Elephant Dynasty, but I have never heard of the Star-Plucking Palace. I am from the Dark Moon Palace." The Dark Moon Palace was one of the 7 superpowers in the Starry Crescent Land. Moreover, the Dark Moon Palace had a good relationship with the Star Elephant Palace. Therefore, Yixing said that he was from the Dark Moon Palace. As for the Big Dipper Sword Sect, Yixing did not mention it. In the Starry Crescent Land, the disciples of the Star Elephant Palace and the Dark Moon Palace had been hunting down the disciples of the Big Dipper Sword Sect. If this was the Starry Crescent Land, the territory of the Star Elephant Palace, then wouldn't Yixing be looking for trouble by saying that he was related to the Big Dipper Sword Sect? When the gray-robed elder heard the words Dark Moon Palace, his eyes were filled with respect and he said, "Young master, so you are a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace. My apologies. No wonder you have never heard of the Star-Plucking Palace. Compared to the Dark Moon Palace, the Star-Plucking Palace is not worth mentioning. There really is a Dark Moon Palace." Yixing's heart suddenly lit up. There could not be so many coincidences. This must be the Starry Crescent Land. The Starry Crescent Land, I can't believe that I am here. Although I can't go back to the Starry Crescent Land, one day, Qing Xian will become the strongest cultivator in the Starry Crescent Land. I will wait for her here. One day, we will meet again. Yixing thought to himself. His mood was inexplicably better. It's a pity that I have to come to the Starry Crescent land before I can destroy the Yuan dynasty. I am a demon star in a chaotic time. Brother He Biao has been so kind to me, but I can't help him at all. I am so sorry. Yixing sighed. If he could go back to the Starry Crescent land, he would definitely try his best to do so. However, he had never heard of anyone going back to the Starry Crescent land. There was no road, how could one go back? Chapter 7:16. Gu Qingchen was obviously not lying. Although he said no, his expression and actions told others the truth. The gray-robed elder, Gu Jinyang, strode to Gu Qingchen and took out the hand that Gu Qingchen had hidden behind his back. There were large bruises on the back of the hand and the forearm. Some parts were even greenish and purplish. It was obvious that he had been hit with great force. They bullied you again. Gu Jinyang was furious and his tone was agitated. Gu Qingchen nodded silently. Bastards! A bunch of ungrateful bastards. Gu Jinyang cursed angrily. His body was shaking. Grandpa Jinyang, it's all my fault for not being able to break through to the Star Vortex realm and bringing shame to the family. Don't be angry. I'll work hard and break through to the Star Vortex realm before I turn 16. When I become the family head, no one will dare to bully me. Gu Qingchen blamed himself when he saw that Gu Jinyang was trembling with anger. Yixing rolled his eyes. This child was really naive. Gu Jinyang grabbed Gu Qingchen's shoulder and shouted, "Who said you brought shame to the family? Listen, you didn't bring shame to the family. You're the son of Gu Tsongnan. Only the family owes you. You don't owe the family anything." Gu Qingchen nodded slightly. Oh. Although it was a reply, there was confusion in his eyes. He missed the days when his parents were still in the family. Since his parents disappeared, everything had changed. The Gu family was no longer the Gu family in his heart. Other than Gu Jinyang, who had always treated him well, everyone else had been polite to him in the first 2 years. Later, when the news of his parents' death spread, his status in the Gu family plummeted, and he slowly became an existence that anyone could bully. Although he was naive, he was not ignorant. He understood some things in his heart, but he was powerless to change them. Even so, Gu Qingchen did not blame the heavens. Instead, he blamed himself. He did not understand why he was stuck at the 9th level of the celestial vortex realm, unable to condense a celestial vortex in his dantian, when other people had stepped into the celestial vortex realm at the age of 15 or 16. The star-tempering realm was only the foundation of martial arts. The star vortex realm was the real beginning of martial arts. If he could not even enter the star vortex realm, how could he be worthy of respect? I must step into the star vortex realm, I must. Gu Qingchen shouted in his heart. Seeing Gu Qingchen's appearance, Gu Jinyang sighed. Although he was Venerable 9-star, he couldn't interfere in the disputes between Gu Qingchen and the younger generation of the Gu clan. Gu Jinyang was very clear that if he interfered, he would definitely attract even more powerful forces. It would be impossible for him to stay by Gu Qingchen's side. Gu Zongbei could spare Gu Qingchen's life, but he would definitely not care about Gu Jinyang's life. Thus, Gu Jinyang could only silently stay by Gu Qingchen's side and take care of his daily life. He would guide him in his cultivation, and when Gu Qingchen went out to train, he would protect him. However, in the Gu clan, Gu Jinyang could not interfere in anything. Gu Jinyang asked, "Who hit you this time?" He narrowed his eyes, hiding a trace of murderous intent. Although he could not interfere, he had to remember who had hurt Gu Qingchen. What if one day, something happened to Gu Qingchen and he was completely abandoned by Gu Cangbei. Then, even if he had to risk his life, Gu Jinyang would pay back this debt, and pay back double. Gu Qingchen said softly, "It was Qing Shan who ordered his subordinates to hit me. Qing Shan asked them to hit my face, but I used my hands to block them, so my face was not injured. Grandpa Jinyang, this is a small injury. It will be fine soon after applying some medicine. I will go and boil some medicine for Big Brother first." Talking about this in front of Yixing, an outsider, clearly put Gu Qingchen in a difficult position. He was too embarrassed to stay in the room, so he left immediately after speaking. Gu Jinyang took a deep breath and restrained his expression. He looked at Yixing and said, "I've made a fool of myself in front of young Master Yi." Yixing did not laugh. Instead, he said seriously, "This child is very talented. He did not break through to the celestial vortex realm because someone did something to his dantian. If the problem is not solved, he will not be able to break through to the celestial vortex realm even if he cultivates for the rest of his life." Yixing had also checked Gu Qingchen's heavens will earlier and discovered that his heavens will fire was green in color. There were a total of 4 flames. This was a 4-star green life, which was enough for him to cultivate to the 4-star supremacy realm. With this kind of cultivation talent, it would not be strange for him to cultivate to the 7th level of the celestial vortex realm at the age of 16. How could he not break through to the celestial vortex realm? Gu Jinyang was stunned. "Young Master Yi, you can see the problem with Qingchen." Yixing blinked to express his affirmation. Although Gu Jinyang did not find anything wrong with Gu Qingchen, he had always been suspicious. Now that he heard Yixing say this, he looked at Yixing with a glimmer of hope. Gu Jinyang quickly walked to the bedside and asked excitedly, "Young master, do you know how to save him?" Yixing blinked again and said, "There is an aura left behind by a supremacy in Qingchen's dantian. As long as this aura is present, Qingchen will not be able to form a celestial vortex in his dantian. When I recover from my injuries, I can get rid of this aura." Gu Jinyang was shocked. "An aura left behind by a supremacy?" Yixing said, "That's right. I don't know how many supremacies Qingchen has interacted with. If there are not many, or if there is only one, then the answer is very clear." Gu Jinyang suddenly raised his voice and said loudly, "I know who it is. It is Supremacy Tangbin from the Star-Plucking Palace. When young master was 13 years old, Supremacy Tangbin came to the Gu clan. Gu Cangbei asked Supremacy Tangbin to take young master as a disciple. After that, Honorable Lord Tangbin had examined the young master's aptitude. At that time, Honorable Lord Tangbin had said that although the young master was blessed by the heavens, his physique was flawed, and it would be difficult for him to even break through to the celestial vortex realm in this lifetime. Since then, young master's position in the Gu clan had plummeted, and he was slowly bullied by the younger generation of the Gu clan. Especially Gu Cangbei's son, Gu Qingshan, who was the worst. My young master was bullied by him the most. Yixing said, "It seems that Gu Cangbei asking Tangbin to take Qingchen as a disciple was just putting on a show with Tangbin. As a high-level astral reaching realm supremacy, Tangbin cooperated with Gu Cangbei to put on a show. Are they close?" Gu Jinyang said, "Gu Cangbei's wife, Tang Yu, is from the Tang clan. She is Tangbin's younger brother's daughter." As he spoke, Gu Jinyang slapped his thigh and said, "I understand now. 6 years ago, no wonder Tang Ming came to the Gu clan and said that there was an opportunity to break through to the mid-level supremacy realm in the Heavenly Flame Ancient Land. He invited the family head and madam to the Heavenly Flame Ancient Land to train, but he never returned. This was definitely a conspiracy. The goal was to kill the family head and madam so that Gu Cangbei could become the family head." There was a lot of information in Gu Jinyang's words. Yixing asked, "Tang Ming, who is he?" The description of the power in the first 2 chapters was wrong. The Gu clan was a 2-star power, not a 4-star power. The star-plucking palace was a 3-star power, not a 5-star power. Chapter 7:17. Gu Jinyang said, Tang Ming is Tang Yu's father and Tang Bin's younger brother. He's a 3-star venerable like the patriarch and madam. Yixing was able to see through Gu Qingchen's problem and solve it. Gu Jinyang had placed all his hopes on Yixing. Therefore, even though it was the first time he met Yixing, he still told him about the Gu clan's past. Of course, this was also because Gu Jinyang thought that Yixing was a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace. He trusted Yixing a lot. The Dark Moon Palace was a 4-star force, one of the 7 superpowers in Starry Crescent Land. It was on the same level as the Astral Palace behind the Astral Dynasty. In front of such a superpower, the Zhaixing Palace was nothing. Therefore, since Yixing could see through Gu Qingchen's problem, Gu Jinyang believed that Yixing could solve Gu Qingchen's problem. Like the Gu clan, the Tang clan is a 2-star force. Gu Jinyang explained again in detail. Yixing finally understood the ins and outs of the matter. The Tang clan and the Gu clan were 2-star forces in Yuezhou. They were under the jurisdiction of the Zhaixing Palace, a 3-star force. Tang Bin of the Tang clan had become a 7-star venerable lord due to some fortuitous encounters. He had a prominent position in the Zhaixing Palace and became an elder, causing the Tang clan's status to soar. As a result, Gu Zhongbei, who had married the Tang clan's woman, also had a higher status in the Gu clan because of his wife's prosperity. Moreover, he was somewhat dissatisfied with his brother, Gu Zhongnan, as the patriarch. Therefore, one day when Gu Qingchen was 10 years old, Tang Bin's younger brother, Tang Ming, came to the Gu clan and said that there was an opportunity to become a mid-level venerable in the Heavenly Flame Ancient Land. He went to the Heavenly Flame Ancient Land with Gu Zhongnan and his wife and never returned. After that, Gu Zhongbei became the acting patriarch. However, due to Gu Zhongnan and his wife's high prestige in the Gu clan, Gu Zhongbei's authority was limited at first. 2 years later, news spread that Gu Zhongnan and his wife had died in the Heavenly Flame Ancient Land. At this time, Tang Bin, an elder of the Star-Plucking Palace, also came to the Gu clan. Gu Zhongbei asked Tang Bin to take Gu Qingchen as his disciple, but Tang Bin left a trace of his aura in Gu Qingchen's body, making it impossible for Gu Qingchen to break through to the Star Vortex realm. From then on, Gu Qingchen's position in the Gu family plummeted. As for Gu Zhongbei, with the support of his wife, Tang Yu, his power in the Gu family grew. By now, the majority of the elders in the Gu clan had already sided with Gu Zhongbei. They were only waiting for Gu Qingchen to reach the age of 16. At that time, before Gu Qingchen had broken through to the Star Vortex realm, Gu Zhongbei would officially become the head of the Gu clan. Gu Qingchen saved my life. I have to help him break through to the Star Vortex realm and ascend to the position of the Gu clan's patriarch. Yixing thought to himself. In the following days, Gu Jinyang knew that it was impossible for Gu Qingchen to break through to the Star Vortex realm. Hence, he did not let Gu Qingchen practice any cultivation techniques. Instead, he allowed Gu Qingchen to practice martial arts every day. Gu Qingchen's comprehension was not bad. Furthermore, as the Venerable 9-star, Gu Jinyang was more than capable of guiding Gu Qingchen in his cultivation of supreme martial arts. Gu Qingchen's martial arts attainments were not weak. Many of his supreme martial arts had reached the great perfection realm. Other than practicing martial arts every day, Gu Qingchen also brewed medicine for Yixing. Although it did not have much of an effect, Yixing did not refuse Gu Qingchen's kindness. Time passed by. After a month, Yixing's injuries had recovered quite a bit. He could already get out of bed and walk around. Furthermore, Yixing could use part of his astral energy. It could be said that he had recovered some of his strength. As Gu Qingchen's 16th birthday approached, his days in the Gu clan became more and more difficult. In this month, he was beaten a few more times. Almost every time, he was bullied by Gu Qingchen. After he could get out of bed and walk around, Yixing left the courtyard and went to a flat area in the back mountain to watch Gu Qingchen cultivate. As an 8-star venerable, Yixing's eyesight was much better than Gu Jinyang's. Furthermore, he had the super brain scan, so he could clearly see any flaws in Gu Qingchen's cultivation. Yixing naturally gave Gu Qingchen a few pointers. This allowed Gu Jinyang to understand his own flaws. As he slowly corrected them, his martial arts attainments grew higher and higher. There were signs of him breaking through to the transformative realm. Gu Jinyang was very impressed by this. Gu Qingchen was even more worshipful of Yixing. Because Yixing's pointers made him feel like his comprehension of martial arts had suddenly improved. As Yixing's strength recovered, Gu Jinyang could sense that Yixing's aura was becoming more and more terrifying. His cultivation base had reached a level that even he could not judge. Gu Jinyang knew that he had met an expert. However, he did not find it strange that Yixing was a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace. As a 4-star power, the Dark Moon Palace even had Star Sea Realm kings among their genius disciples. Therefore, when Yixing started to give pointers to Gu Jinyang consciously stopped and let Gu Qingchen cultivate according to Yixing's pointers. Another half a month passed. Yixing's injuries were getting better and better. He had recovered more than 70% of his strength. In another half a month, he would be completely recovered. Gu Qingchen's several supreme-grade martial arts had also broken through to the transformative realm under Yixing's pointers. His strength had increased greatly. Furthermore, Yixing also took out some low-grade spirit herbs for Gu Qingchen to cultivate his physical body cultivation technique. This would strengthen his physical body in the star-tempering realm and lay a good foundation. On this day, Gu Qingchen went out to buy herbs again. Unlike before, he jogged all the way to Yixing with an excited smile on his face. "Big brother Yixing, I won. Gu Qingchen said excitedly. He was so happy that he danced with joy. Martial arts that have reached the transformative realm are indeed powerful. In addition, my physical strength has increased greatly. This time, I defeated all the 1-star marquises who bullied me." Gu Qingchen was so excited that he could not sleep. He was at the 9th level of the star-tempering realm and had defeated several star vortex realm martial artists. For so many years, Gu Qingchen had been beaten up. He had never felt so elated before. Looking at the excited Gu Qingchen, Yixing had a thought. Gu Qingchen could be considered elated this time. However, his strength had increased greatly, and this would definitely attract Gu Cangbei's attention. Now, other than Gu Qingchen and Gu Jinyang, no one in the Gu family knew about Yixing's existence. However, from today onwards, Gu Cangbei would definitely send people to investigate. My injuries will recover soon. I don't need to stay here anymore. Yixing looked at the mountains and thought to himself, I can find a place to live in seclusion and not let the Gu family know. After Gu Qingchen becomes the family head, I will leave and go to the Big Dipper sword sect to see Brother Feng. Gu Qingchen did not notice Yixing's expression and said excitedly, "It's a pity that I didn't beat Gu Qingchen today. I only tied with him. He is at the 2nd level of the Star Vortex realm. It seems that I have to break through to the Star Vortex realm to defeat him. After I become the family head, I will continue to cultivate diligently. In the future, I will become an expert like my father and mother. At that time, I will go to the Heavenly Flame Ancient Land to find them." Chapter 719. Yixing stood up and put away all the corpse jades. Originally, he was going to refine the corpse jades to raise his cultivation after he recovered. But now, it seemed that he had to find a place to raise the quality of his star fire seed before he could refine the corpse jades. With his current cultivation, only the corpse jades of profound grade 5 and 6 would be effective. Qingchen will turn 16 in a month. Even if I help him break through to the star vortex realm, he won't be able to escape from Gu Xiangbei's evil hands without my help. I'll wait for a month and deal with Qingchen's problem before heading to the Heavenly Flame ancient land. Yixing thought to himself. After leaving the wooden house, Yixing went to the other side of the mountain and opened his martial Dao Heavenly Eye. On this day, Gu Qingchen was cultivating at the back of the mountain as usual. Gu Jinyang was watching from the side. Yixing checked Gu Qingchen's surroundings and did not find anyone watching him. Yixing's figure flashed and left the mountain. Soon, he arrived at Gu Qingchen's location. Yixing's speed was so fast that even Gu Jinyang, a venerable 9-star, could not see Yixing's figure. When Yixing suddenly appeared, both Gu Qingchen and Gu Jinyang were shocked. Seeing that the person who appeared was Yixing, the two of them relaxed. Young Master Yixing is so fast. Even the family head does not have such speed. It seems that young Master Yixing is at least a mid-level venerable. Gu Jinyang exclaimed inwardly. At the same time, he guessed Yixing's cultivation. When Gu Qingchen saw Yixing, he cheered after recovering from his shock. Big brother Yixing, your injuries are all healed. Yixing smiled and nodded. I'll clear the aura in your dantian today. With your cultivation, you'll be able to break through to the star vortex realm soon. Gu Qingchen's eyes lit up, and he became excited. He had been dreaming of breaking through to the star vortex realm. Gu Jinyang said, Young Master, it's your fortune to meet young Master Yi. Hurry up and thank him. Sigh. Yixing raised his hand and stopped Gu Qingchen from thanking him. He said, if you hadn't saved me, I might have been torn apart by the wild beasts in the mountains. How could I still be alive today? I helped you solve some small problems. Compared to you saving my life, this is nothing. As he spoke, Yixing walked over to Gu Qingchen and said, sit down. Oh. Gu Qingchen sat down. Yixing sat down opposite Gu Qingchen. He stretched out his hands and grabbed Gu Qingchen's hands. Relax your mind and don't move your body. It will be done very soon. Gu Qingchen nodded. Very quickly, Gu Qingchen felt a warm current pass through Yixing's palms. It traveled along his arms and into his body, finally reaching his dantian. The heat flow lingered in his dantian for a while, and a warm feeling came, which was very comfortable. In less than 10 breaths, the energy flow in Gu Qingchen's dantian dissipated and left his body. Tang Bin, who had left his aura in Gu Qingchen's dantian, was a 7-star supremacy, while Yixing was an 8-star supremacy. Yixing's astral energy was much stronger than Tang Bin's, so it was naturally easy for him to remove Tang Bin's aura. Yixing released his hands and said, all right, I have removed the aura in your dantian. You can now condense a star vortex and break through to the star vortex realm. Gu Qingchen's eyes lit up as he nodded excitedly. Yixing stood up and walked to the side, standing beside Gu Jinyang. In order not to disturb Gu Qingchen, Gu Jinyang did not say anything. However, he bowed deeply to Yixing to express his gratitude. Yixing quickly helped Gu Jinyang up. Gu Qingchen closed his eyes and circulated his cultivation technique. The dense inner qi in his body gathered in his dantian. In the surrounding void, the astral energy also sensed it and automatically flowed towards Gu Qingchen, being absorbed by his body. When one broke through to the star vortex realm, the fluctuation of astral energy was very small. It could only be felt within a few hundred meters. Gu Qingchen's residence was already remote enough in the Gu clan. Now, Gu Qingchen was in the back mountain of his residence. Other than Yixing and Gu Jinyang, there was no one else within a few hundred meters. The Gu clan naturally did not know that Gu Qingchen was breaking through to the star vortex realm. Gu Qingshan's cultivation should have reached the star vortex realm long ago. However, due to the aura left by Tang Bin in his dantian, as long as Gu Qingshan condensed a star vortex, the aura would disperse the star vortex. Therefore, no matter what, Gu Qingshan could not condense a star vortex and break through to the star vortex realm. Now, the aura in Gu Qingshan's dantian had been removed by Yixing. Gu Qingshan's cultivation talent was very high, and he had not stopped cultivating during the 2 years when he was stuck at the 9th level of the star tempering realm. His cultivation had accumulated a lot. Now that he had condensed a star vortex, there was no external force to stop him. Naturally, he succeeded. In just a few breaths' time, Gu Qingshan's aura changed. The star vortex in his dantian had completely condensed and formed. The internal qi in his body had undergone a qualitative change. It had turned into star essence of a higher quality, and his strength had increased greatly. Gu Qingshan's cultivation had broken through to the first level of the star vortex realm and officially entered the martial path. However, Gu Qingshan's cultivation did not stop after he broke through to the star vortex realm. His aura was still increasing rapidly, and the star essence in his body was getting stronger. Gu Qingshan's cultivation at the 9th level of the star tempering realm was too strong. Now that he had broken through to the star vortex realm, the consolidated astral energy in his body was like a gate that had been opened. It gushed out crazily and strengthened his cultivation. Mid first level. Late first level. Peak first level, Gu Qingshan's cultivation was increasing at a visible speed. Soon, the surrounding astral energy in the void sensed it and gathered toward Gu Qingshan's body. Gu Qingshan started to break through to the 2nd level of the star vortex realm again. It was not that Gu Qingshan was biting off more than he could chew. It was just that he had accumulated too much over the past 2 years. Now that he had accumulated enough, breaking through to the next level would not stop his cultivation from increasing. Therefore, he continued to break through. Not long after, Gu Qingshan's aura increased by another notch. His cultivation had broken through to the 2nd level of the star vortex realm. After breaking through, Gu Qingshan's cultivation continued to increase. Soon, he reached the mid-2nd level. Late 2nd level. It was only when he reached the late 2nd level of the star vortex realm that he stopped consolidating his cultivation. He slowly opened his eyes, and they were filled with surprise. In the past, Gu Qingshan had been looking forward to breaking through to the star vortex realm. However, he had not succeeded for 2 years. Today, not only had he broken through to the star vortex realm, but his cultivation had also made continuous breakthroughs. He had advanced triumphantly all the way to the 2nd level of the star vortex realm. How could he not be happy? I have broken through to the star vortex realm, and I am a 2-star marquis. Gu Qingshan stood up and felt the cultivation in his body. His voice was trembling with excitement. Similarly excited was Gu Jinyang. He looked at Gu Qingshan with gratification, unable to contain his joy. Chapter 720. In order to give Gu Zhangbai a surprise, on Gu Qingshan's coming-of-age ceremony, Yixing sealed Gu Qingshan's cultivation so that he still looked like a level 9-star tempering realm martial artist. After breaking through to the star vortex realm, the inner qi in his body had been strengthened to star origin, and he could cultivate spiritual martial arts. Gu Qingshan had awakened the upper-class metal element astrology. Yixing had inherited the lower-class spiritual martial art, metal elemental /. As for the martial arts inheritance, the Gu family had their own martial arts. With Yixing's guidance, Gu Qingshan's inferior spiritual martial art improved by leaps and bounds. After a month, Gu Qingshan's metal origin / had reached the perfection stage. Although Yixing's guidance had contributed greatly to Gu Qingshan's speed, it was also largely due to Gu Qingshan's talent in martial arts and his diligence. The Starry Crescent Lands calendar was the same as the Star Continents calendar. After teaching Gu Qingchen how to cultivate the inferior spiritual martial art, another year had passed. Yixing was already 23 years old. Half a month after the end of the year, Gu Qingchen's birthday was on the 15th of January. On this day, Gu Qingchen would reach adulthood at the age of 16. This day was a big event for the Gu clan. When the young master reached adulthood, he would inherit the position of clan leader. However, everyone in the Gu clan knew that it was impossible for Gu Qingchen to succeed. In the morning, the elders of the Gu clan walked out of their mansions and came to the Gu clan's ancestral hall. The ancestral hall was a place to worship the ancestors. Regardless of whether the position of clan leader was inherited or taken away, it had to be carried out in the ancestral hall. The acting clan leader, Gu Songbei, was a middle-aged man in his 30s. He smiled and greeted the elders in the clan. He was in a very good mood. In the entire Gu clan, other than the great elder, Gu Jinyuan, who was not on good terms with him, the rest of the elders were on good terms with him. Although the great elder, Gu Jinyuan, was the leader of the Gu family, as long as Gu Qingchen could not even step into the star vortex realm, he did not have the qualifications to inherit the position of patriarch. Gu Jinyuan could not stop Gu Songbei from taking away Gu Qingchen's right to inherit the position of patriarch, nor could he stop Gu Songbei from ascending to the position of patriarch. Today's matter was divided into two stages. The first stage was to strip Gu Qingchen of his right to inherit the patriarch position. The second stage was for Gu Songbei to officially become the patriarch. Both of them had to testify in front of the ancestral tablets in the ancestral hall. Beside Gu Songbei stood a beautiful middle-aged woman. All the elders respected her, even more than Gu Songnan. She was naturally Gu Songbei's wife Tang Yu. The Tang family was powerful. Furthermore, Lord Tang Bin was Tang Yu's biological uncle. This caused Tang Yu's position in the Gu family to be rather high. In name, the Gu family's matters were managed by Gu Songbei, the acting family head. In reality, the person who truly made the decisions was Tang Yu. Young Lord Qingchen is here. A guard shouted from outside the ancestral hall. Immediately after, someone ran in and reported to Gu Songbei, family head, among the people that Gu Qingchen brought, other than Gu Jinyang, there's also an unfamiliar young man. Gu Songbei's eyes narrowed slightly as he said, an unfamiliar young man. What's his cultivation? The person who was reporting said, this person has concealed his cultivation, and his aura is completely hidden. I can't tell. Gu Songbei asked again, where's Qingchen? The person who was reporting said, he's still at the 9th level of the star-tempering realm. As long as there were no accidents with Gu Qingchen's cultivation, no one could stop him, Gu Songbei, from becoming the Gu family's family head. Gu Songbei waved his hand, and the person who was reporting retreated. Soon, Gu Qingchen walked in. As for Yixing and Gu Jinyang, they were stopped outside the ancestral hall. Today was a major event for the Gu family. Even in the Gu family, only the elders could enter. The others had to wait outside. Of course, it was the same for outsiders. The moment Gu Qingchen entered the ancestral hall, everyone's gazes landed on him as they inspected his cultivation. Most of these elders were 1-star venerables, and very few were 2-star venerables. Of course, they could not see Yixing's seal and thought that Gu Qingchen had yet to break through to the star vortex realm. Greetings, uncle and elders. Gu Qingchen's expression did not change as he bowed to everyone. After breaking through to the star vortex realm, Gu Qingchen's mental state had improved tremendously. In addition to Yixing's intentional training, Gu Qingchen could be said to have undergone a complete transformation. In the past, if Gu Qingchen faced Gu Songbei and the other elders, he would definitely be very timid and would not be able to raise his head. Now, however, he could face them with a normal expression. Of course, Gu Qingchen's heart was not as calm as he looked. His heart was still beating faster. The elders were surprised by Gu Qingchen's performance. However, seeing that Gu Qingchen's cultivation had yet to break through to the star vortex realm, they did not look at him anymore. Without breaking through to the star vortex realm, there was no change. From today onwards, Gu Qingchen's right to inherit the family head position would be taken away, and he would become an ordinary family member. The great elder, Gu Jinyuan, did not support Gu Zongbei to become the family head. However, seeing that Gu Qingchen's cultivation was still at the 9th level of the star-tempering realm, he closed his eyes and entered a meditative state. He could not stop today's matter, nor was he interested in stopping it. Since Qingchen is here, then today's ancestral worship will begin. Gu Zongbei walked to the center of the ancestral hall and faced the ancestral tablet. He bowed deeply and said, "Ancestors above." First, Gu Zongbei recited a long memorial speech. It was nothing more than praising the merits of the ancestors and the contributions that each generation of the family head had made to the family. Looking at the history of the family heads, they were all heroes with unparalleled martial arts and were the best in the family. Those who took over the family head position at a young age were also geniuses of the younger generation. When they reached adulthood, they were all star marquis. There has never been a precedent of someone who did not become a star marquis when they reached adulthood. As Gu Zongbei spoke, he changed the topic and turned it to Gu Qingchen. Today, there is a disdainful descendant, Gu Qingchen. As the successor of the family head, his aptitude is extremely poor. After cultivating for a few years, he has yet to step into the star vortex realm when he reached adulthood. He has wasted the family's nurturing. With such behavior, if he were to inherit the family head position, wouldn't it bring shame to the Gu family? It would make our ancestors blush with shame. The current family head, Gu Zongbei, requests instructions from the ancestors to strip Gu Qingchen of his right to inherit the family head position. Elders, please make a decision. As soon as Gu Zongbei finished speaking, some elders wanted to speak up in support. However, Gu Qingchen spoke before anyone else. Gu Qingchen said, "Uncle, this is the family ancestral hall. How can you slander me in front of the ancestors?" The elders' words immediately stopped in their mouths. Gu Zongbei looked at Gu Qingchen in surprise and shouted, "What did you say? When did I slander you?" Gu Qingchen revealed a trace of a smile and said, "I have clearly broken through to the star vortex realm. Why did uncle say that I have yet to become a star marquis and bring shame to the Gu family and our ancestors? If this is not slander, what is it?" As he spoke, Gu Qingchen used the method that Yixing had taught him to unseal the cultivation in his body. The aura of a second-level star vortex realm instantly leaked out from Gu Qingchen's body. Chapter 721. In the Gu clan ancestral hall, Gu Zongbei, Tang Yu, and the Gu clan elders were stunned. Gu Qingchen's cultivation was actually second-level star vortex realm. In an instant, everyone's expressions became extremely interesting. Great Elder Gu Jinyuan opened his eyes. His eyes were also filled with shock, but they shone brightly. Gu Zongbei looked at Gu Qingchen and exclaimed, "This is impossible. How did you break through to the star vortex realm?" Gu Qingchen looked at Gu Zongbei and said, "Oh, uncle, is it really impossible for me to break through to the star vortex realm?" "Why?" Although Gu Zongbei had treated Gu Qingchen badly ever since he became the acting clan leader, Gu Qingchen did not hate him. Even though Gu Jinyang had told Gu Qingchen that he could not break through to the star vortex realm and that it might be Gu Zongbei's doing, without any evidence, Gu Qingchen could not hate his uncle. However, ever since Yixing had told him about the problem in his dantian and solved it for him, Gu Qingchen was filled with hatred for Gu Zongbei no matter how pure he was. Gu Qingchen stared at Gu Zongbei's eyes. His gaze was sharp as a sword, and there was anger hidden in his eyes. Gu Songbei had a guilty conscience. Being stared at by Gu Qingchen, he felt guilty and avoided his gaze. Tang Yu walked up to Gu Songbei and said, Gu Qingchen, after you broke through to the 9th level of the star-tempering realm, your cultivation did not improve for 2 years. My uncle, Honorable Lord Tang Bin, was right. Your aptitude is too poor, and it will be difficult for you to achieve great things. Now that you suddenly broke through to the 2nd level of the star vortex realm, you must have used some medicine to forcefully raise your cultivation in order to inherit the clan leader's position, right? You already have a bleak future ahead of you. Now that you have not even built a solid foundation, you are spoiling things by pulling up seedlings to help them grow. What can you achieve in the future? If the clan leader's position is passed to you, it will be a great decline. Gu Qingchen's aptitude was not bad. He was a 4-star green life. However, Honorable Lord Tang Bin had left a trace of Honorable Lord's aura in Gu Qingchen's dantian, so Gu Qingchen could not form a star vortex and break through to the star vortex realm. Naturally, exalted Lord Tang Bin would not lie through his teeth and say that Gu Qingchen's aptitude was poor. Instead, he would say that Gu Qingchen's physique was not good enough. Now, Tang Yu had directly labeled Gu Qingchen as someone with poor aptitude. The elders and Gu Songbei had long been in cahoots. Once Tang Yu's words came out, someone echoed, "Madam is right." Hee hee. At this moment, a cold laugh resounded. The first elder, Gu Jinyuan, spoke, "Qingchen's fate is a 4-star green fate, the highest fate in the history of our Gu clan. You call this a lack of aptitude?" Then, everyone here, including this old man, would have the aptitude of trash. Previously, when Gu Jinyuan saw that Gu Qingchen was already 16 years old but still had not broken through to the star vortex realm, he also believed Honorable Lord Tang Bin's words. Naturally, he could not be bothered to speak up for a useless Gu Qingchen. Now, it was different. Honorable Lord Tang Bin had said that it would be difficult for Gu Qingchen to break through to the star vortex realm. Now that Gu Qingchen had broken through to the star vortex realm, it meant that he could continue to cultivate. With Gu Qingchen's cultivation talent of a 4-star green fate, he would definitely become a 4-star venerable in the future. The Gu clan had never had a middle-level venerable. As the Gu clan's first elder, how could Gu Jinyuan not stand on Gu Qingchen's side? If it wasn't for Gu Jinyuan mentioning it, the Gu clan's elders would have all forgotten about Gu Qingchen's fate. Now that they were reminded by Gu Jinyuan, they realized that Gu Qingchen's fate had broken the Gu clan's record. This was a future 4-star venerable. How could he not be qualified to succeed the position of clan leader? Although the elders had already colluded with Gu Songbei and had received benefits from him, there were still fence-sitters. Seeing that Gu Qingchen's fate was high, his potential was great, and he had the first elder's protection, a few elders immediately changed their tone and spoke up for Gu Qingchen. First elder is right. A 4-star green fate means that he will definitely become a 4-star venerable in the future. How could Qingchen's talent not be enough to succeed the position of clan leader? If Qingchen enters the star-plucking palace, he might even become a high-level astral-reaching realm venerable in the future, just like Tang Bin of the Tang clan. How could his right to succeed the clan leader be taken away? Gu Songbei's and Tang Yu's faces darkened. In order to become the official clan leader of the Gu clan, they had waited for several years for Gu Qingchen to turn 16. The reason why they had not killed Gu Qingchen earlier was so that they could become the official clan leader today. Instead, they had forcefully snatched the position away from them, which would make them look bad. However, judging from the current situation, it would be very difficult for Gu Songbei to become the clan leader. Gu Songbei and Tang Yu did not understand. Gu Qingchen had the aura left behind by Tang Bin in his body. This was the aura left behind by a venerable. As long as it remained in Gu Qingchen's dantian, he would not be able to break through to the star vortex realm. However, Gu Qingchen had just broken through to the celestial vortex realm, and he had even broken through to the second level of the celestial vortex realm. What was going on? How could Tang Bin make a mistake? At the same time, Gu Songbei thought of the report just now. Other than the old servant Gu Jinyang, there was also an unfamiliar young man who had come with Gu Qingchen. Could it be him? Gu Songbei's heart jumped. Gu Songbei thought about it and could only think of the unfamiliar young man. This was because the unfamiliar young man was the only anomaly beside Gu Qingchen. Since there was a change in the situation, it could only be the doing of this unfamiliar young man. How dare you meddle in my Gu clan's business? You're courting death. Gu Songbei clenched his fists and a fierce aura exploded. In the ancestral hall, everyone in the Gu clan had restrained their aura. At this moment, Gu Songbei's aura exploded and revealed a fierce aura. Naturally, it attracted everyone's attention. Gu Songbei stared at Gu Qingchen and shouted, "You were able to break through to the star vortex realm because of the stranger who came with you, right?" Previously, he had been stared at by Gu Qingchen and felt a little guilty. Now, Gu Songbei was going all out and had made up his mind to snatch the position of the clan leader. The awkwardness in his heart had disappeared. Gu Qingchen stared at Gu Songbei and asked loudly, "Someone left an aura in my dantian so that I would never be able to break through to the star vortex realm. Was this your idea or someone else's?" Gu Songbei coldly snorted and said, "Since you already know, then I'll say it clearly today. The position of the Gu family's patriarch must be taken by me. Even if you don't want to, you have to." The elders of the Gu clan all looked at Gu Songbei. Although they had colluded before, it was under the premise that Gu Songbei had a legitimate reason to do so. Now, Gu Songbei was clearly trying to snatch it. Moreover, it was in front of the ancestral tablets in the ancestral hall, causing the elders to be stunned. A proud smile appeared on Tang Yu's face as she said, "With the support of the Tang family, the Gu family will be able to develop even better." The person who stopped Songbei from becoming the head of the family has no concept of the family at all. He only thinks about his own benefits and doesn't think about the family. He really deserves to die. Ha 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 ha. Gu Songbei laughed wildly and said, "Gu Jinyuan, this family head will now strip you of your position as the first elder. If you surrender, I can still spare your life on account of your contributions to the family. Otherwise, I'll let you die today." As he spoke, Gu Songbei's gaze swept across the elders who stood behind Gu Jinyuan. "You all are really not afraid of death." The elders had long regretted it in their hearts. Now that they felt Gu Songbei's killing intent, their hearts trembled as they hurriedly said, "We support the head of the family, we support the head of the family." As they spoke, they had already moved to stand behind Gu Songbei. Only Gu Jinyuan was left beside Gu Qingchen. "You!" Gu Jinyuan was so angry that he trembled. He pointed at Gu Songbei and shouted, "How much of the family's benefits did you betray to get the Tang family to work for you?" In contrast to Gu Jinyuan's anger, Gu Qingchen's expression was still calm. Yi Xing had already predicted this and told him about it. Gu Qingchen said, "Uncle, I'll call you uncle for the last time. Are you blinded by greed and went to the Tang family for the head of the family and betrayed the family's benefits, or were you instigated by others? Or were you forced to?" Gu Songbei laughed and said, "I'm doing this for the development of the Gu family. What do you, a brat, know? Originally, I wanted to politely get the head of the family position, but I didn't expect you to ruin it at the last moment. If I had known this, why would I have waited for a few years? I would have killed you long ago. Now, what's the use of keeping you alive?" Gu Songbei shouted. His killing intent surged as he slapped Gu Qingchen's head with his palm. "How dare you! Gu Jinyuan shouted angrily. He was about to stop Gu Songbei when he heard the sound of something breaking through the air. It was Tang Yu who had suddenly thrown a flying knife at Gu Jinyuan's head. If this knife hit Gu Jinyuan's head, he would definitely die. Tang Yu was also a 2-star venerable, and her strength was not much inferior to Gu Jinyuan's. It was difficult for Gu Jinyuan to block this flying knife with a sudden sneak attack, let alone Gu Qinchin. Gu Jinyuan's speed exploded to the limit, and he barely dodged the flying knife's attack. At the same time, a shrill scream was heard. The scream came from Gu Songbei's mouth. His palm fell on Gu Qinchin's head, and it was caught by a hand. This hand was like an iron clamp, squeezing Gu Songbei's palm together, and the bones inside were crushed into pieces. What was more frightening was that a scorching strong current came from the hand and invaded Gu Songbei's meridians, making Gu Songbei feel as if his entire arm was being cut by a knife. The owner of this hand, who was standing beside Gu Qinchin, was a young man in black. It was Yi Xing. The people of the Gu family did not know Yi Xing. Looking at this unfamiliar young man, they were all shocked. Gu Songbei was a 2-star venerable, but his palm was so easily caught by the other party. What kind of cultivation did this unfamiliar young man have? Could he be a middle-stage venerable? Who are you? Let me go. Gu Songbei shouted, and there was fear in his eyes. Bang! Yi Xing's strong current exploded in his palm, and Gu Songbei's palm was directly blown into pieces, turning into a cloud of blood mist. Ah! Gu Songbei screamed. His entire palm was gone. Even if his injury was healed, he would still be a cripple. Songbei. Tang Yu was shocked. Her figure flashed to Gu Songbei's side, and she looked at Yi Xing with fear. She shouted, "Uncle!" Lord Tang Bin was in the Gu family. However, he did not plan to show himself at the beginning. He only wanted to support Gu Songbei and Tang Yu. After all, interfering with the succession of the family head was not a good reputation. He did not care about what the Gu family thought, but there were many families in the world, and there were many families stronger than the Tang family. If he interfered and broke the rules, it would cause the other families to hate him. Therefore, he did not plan to show himself, and only secretly stayed in the Gu family. Moreover, he did not need to show himself. As long as Tang Yu reported his name as the family head, Gu Songbei would become the family head. Naturally, there would not be many people who would dare to stop him. However, he had to show himself now. Chapter 723. A long howl sounded from the family head's residence. With that howl, a figure rushed into the sky. In the blink of an eye, he traversed several miles and appeared above the Gu family's ancestral hall. Tang Bin's cultivation aura erupted. The terrifying aura of a supremacy spread in all directions, forming a huge pressure. Under this pressure, many Gu family martial artists swayed, unable to stand steadily. Who is it? How dare you not give me, supremacy Tang Bin, face? Come out. Tang Bin stood in the sky and shouted. His voice reverberated, deafening the Gu family martial artists. Looking at Tang Bin in the sky, the Gu family martial artists' eyes were filled with fear. The Gu family was only a 2-star inferior family. Compared to them, a 7-star supremacy was too terrifying. As long as a 7-star supremacy wanted to, he could easily wipe out the Gu family. Tang Yu glared fiercely at Yi Xing and shouted, "I don't care who you are or where you've come from. Since you've dared to hurt my husband today, my uncle will tear you to pieces and make sure you die without a proper burial." Yi Xing looked very young, only 18 or 19 years old. With such a young appearance, even if he was a supremacy, he shouldn't be that old. Such a young supremacy shouldn't have a high cultivation. Although there were many factions in the Starry Crescent land that were stronger than the Jiaxing Palace, Tang Yu didn't believe that Gu Qingchen would know any of them. Therefore, with Tang Bin, a 7-star supremacy, around, although Tang Yu was wary of Yi Xing, she didn't think much of him. She believed that Yi Xing would die without a doubt. Yi Xing glanced coldly at Tang Yu, grabbed Gu Qingchen's arm, and left the Gu family's ancestral hall. Yi Xing's cultivation aura erupted. He was also a 7-star supremacy. The Jiaxing Palace was a 3-star faction. Even the weakest 3-star faction had a king overseeing it. Yi Xing had no enmity with the Jiaxing Palace. His goal today was to let Gu Qingchen become the family head. It wasn't good to start a feud with the Jiaxing Palace. Therefore, it was better to scare Tang Bin away. Whether it was Tang Bin or the Gu family martial artists, they were all shocked. They had never imagined that Yi Xing would be a 7-star supremacy at such a young age. The younger one was, the more potential one had. Yi Xing was already a 7-star supremacy at such a young age. It was very likely that he would become an 8-star supremacy or even a 9-star supremacy in the future. On the other hand, Tang Bin was already over 100 years old. The reason he had become a 7-star High Lord was because of various fortuitous encounters. He had already reached the peak of his cultivation, and could not make any further progress. Upon seeing that Yi Xing was also a 7-star supremacy and that he was so young, Tang Bin's aura calmed down a lot. Tang Bin said, "Your Excellency is also a 7-star venerable lord, so you're definitely not a nobody. May I know your name and which force you're from?" Although his aura had calmed down considerably, Tang Bin's tone was still unyielding. Although he did not have the same potential as the other party, as an elder of the Jiaxing Palace, the Jiaxing Palace behind him was not to be trifled with. More importantly, the Jiaxing Palace was a subordinate force of the Celestial Elephant Palace, which was one of the 7 supreme forces in the Starry Crescent land. Yi Xing said indifferently, "I'm a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace." The Dark Moon Palace was one of the 7 supreme forces in the Starry Crescent land. It was on the same level as the Celestial Elephant Palace. Whether it was Tang Bin or the Gu clan cultivators, they were all shocked when they heard Yi Xing say that he was a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace. The Starry Crescent land was extremely vast, and the 7 4th-grade forces were high and mighty. It was not easy for cultivators of ordinary forces to meet a disciple of one of the 7 4th-grade forces. But now, there was a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace standing in front of them. How could they not be shocked? Tang Bin looked at Yi Xing, his gaze clearly showing signs of retreat. Although the Jiaxing Palace was the strongest force in the Yuezhou, it could not be compared to the Dark Moon Palace. However, Tang Bin was also somewhat surprised. How could a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace know the Gu clan's young master, Gu Qingchen? Tang Bin cupped his fists and said, "So young master is a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace. Sorry for the disrespect. How may I address you?" Yi Xing said, "Yi Yangxing. The Gu clan's young master, Gu Qingchen, is a good friend of mine. He saved my life before. Whoever dares to covet his position as the clan head is my enemy." Yi Xing had killed the disciples of the Xingxiang Palace, the Dark Moon Palace, and the Demon Sealing Valley in the extraterritorial Starry Crescent land. At that time, the disciples of other sects had seen it. The name Yi Xing might not be safe in the Starry Crescent land, so Yi Xing had used a fake name. Yi Xing's name was Yi Rixing. The sun was Yang, so Yi Yangxing was Yi Yangxing. Tang Bin was surprised, but it was only for a moment. What kind of force was the Dark Moon Palace? Tang Bin did not believe that someone would dare to impersonate a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace. Especially after seeing Yi Xing's extraordinary bearing, Tang Bin dispelled the suspicion in his heart. He said, "Young Master Yi is right. Gu Qingchen inherits the position as the clan head. My star-plucking palace also supports this. Who dares to covet his position as the clan head? No one dares. Yixing waved his hand and said, "You can get lost now." Tang Bin's expression stiffened, but since he believed that Yixing was a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace, Tang Bin naturally did not dare to give him any face. He smiled and said, "Young Master Yi, I will leave now, leave now." As soon as he finished speaking, Tang Bin turned into a ray of light and disappeared into the sky. Yixing's gaze turned towards Gu Cangbei and Tang Yu. His gaze was casual. However, Gu Cangbei and Tang Yu felt as if two rays of sword light had swept over, and their hearts trembled. At the same time, Gu Cangbei and Tang Yu knelt on the ground. At this moment, Gu Cangbei could no longer care about the pain in his hand. There was only fear in his heart as he said, "Young Master Yi, please spare my life. Spare my life." Tang Yu directly kowtowed to Yixing and said, "This lowly concubine had eyes but did not recognize Mount Tai. Young Master Yi, please forgive me. Young Master Yi, please forgive me." When Yixing announced his identity as a disciple of the Dark Moon Palace, even the Star-Plucking Palace's elder Tang Bin was scared witless. Gu Cangbei and Tang Yu were only two star venerables. In front of Yixing, they were like ants. If Yixing wanted to kill them, he could easily kill them with a raise of his hand. How could they not be scared? This was especially true for Tang Yu. When Tang Bin arrived, she arrogantly threatened Yixing, saying that she would crush Yixing into smithereens and die without a proper burial. Now, when Tang Yu recalled her words, she wanted to slap her own mouth. Her heart was filled with fear, and she repeatedly kowtowed to Yixing. Although Yixing looked down on Gu Cangbei and Tang Yu, he was not the person involved. They were fighting for Gu Qingqin's position as the family head, and the person they wanted to harm was also Gu Qingqin. Yixing was only here to help. As for Gu Cangbei and Tang Yu's life and death, it was up to Gu Qingqin to decide. This was because the one who would remain as the family head was Gu Qingqin, not Yixing. Yixing looked at Gu Qingqin and said, "Whether they live or die, you decide for yourself. You are now the family head of the Gu family. If you want them to die, just give the order and they will die." You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.